All right, we are live. Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening for our regular planning meeting of February. We have full council in attendance tonight, as well as our planner from Red River Planning, David Payton, and our CAO, Mr. Alnick, and RM of West St. Paul is our Municipal Legislative Officer, Ms. Shaw, joining us as well. I will call the meeting to order. Resolution here, sorry. Be it resolved that the meeting be the agenda be adopted as circulated. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor, seconded Link. Any questions? Councillor Bichetti? Oh, sorry. Okay. Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Item number 3, addendums to the agenda. We have a resolution as there was a planning matter withdrawn from the agenda. Be it resolved that council accepts the following additions, deletions, and/or changes to the agenda. Delete item 5.1 to open the public hearing for variation order 15920. 5.1.1, the public hearing for variation order 15920. 5.12, close the public hearing for variation order 15920, and 5.1.3, the resolution for variance order 15920. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Link, seconded Councillor Prague. Mr. Planner, is there any information that you could give council on why this item was withdrawn, if this is at the applicant's request?
Yeah, so 2 days ago, the applicant requested that we withdraw the application. They indicated that they were going to address the issue, correct the issue, instead of seeking a variance from council.
Thank you for the clarification. That's great. Any questions from council? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, get away there, and that is carried. Thank you. All right. Item 4 is our invocation. We'll no longer be having invocation at the beginning of our council meetings, as discussed at the committee of the whole meeting, in order to comply with Supreme Court ruling on prayer before council meetings. Starting at the next regular council meeting, we will change this to opening remarks from the chair as opposed to a prayer. And it will be similar in nature, but not a prayer. All right, item 5, we're beginning our planning items. We have 3 planning items on the agenda for this evening. And before we begin, I will just read the introduction to our planning portion of the meeting. We are aware that most people who attend council meetings for planning matters, like the ones here tonight, are not completely familiar with the planning process and how that works. I want to spend a few minutes providing some additional context so that we'll have a better understanding of the process, the requirements around the Manitoba Planning Act, and our bylaws. Any person can apply for a variance, conditional use, rezoning, or subdivision as per the Manitoba Planning Act. By making the application with West St. Paul's Planning Authority, the Red River Planning District, this does not mean that council has endorsed the planning item. When an application is submitted, council is required to hear from the applicant and those representatives who attend the public hearing to speak in favor, in opposition, or for more information. It is important to note that council is being presented with all of the information at the same time as those in attendance here today. There are procedures council members must follow once an application is officially filed with Red River Planning District and until such time as a decision is made. Council members cannot speak with the applicant or any other persons who may be seeking information or want to speak in support or in opposition of an open application. This guards against anyone influencing council members before the public hearing and ensures each member of council makes their decision based on the same information heard or presented by way of correspondence here tonight. Often, residents are frustrated by not being able to speak with their elected officials once an application has been filed, but this is done for these reasons. The Red River Planning District staff can, however, answer questions from the public on applications at any time. The Red River Planning District accepts applications from residents and developers who want to build houses, sheds, swimming pools, garages, decks, etc., and from those who want to subdivide their lands from one-lot subdivisions to larger developments. The Red River Planning District staff are professional planners recognized by a professional association and are tasked with researching every application. Their work and recommendations to council are made based on a legal framework and not personal opinions. They review each application against the Manitoba Planning Act, our development plan, and our zoning bylaw. They also circulate the application to many other organizations that may be impacted, such as Manitoba Infrastructure, the Public Schools Finance Board, Sustainable Development, Gas, Hydro, and adjacent municipalities such as the City of Winnipeg, East St. Paul, and Rockwood, to name a few. Red River Planning staff does this to determine if the application meets all legal requirements. At public hearings, council hears from many delegations and will ultimately decide if the application is a good fit for the community and if it will be approved. We consider both the legal requirements the planner has researched as well as feedback from our community. I want to briefly discuss the process for those of you who are not familiar. To begin a public hearing, a resolution is read to open the public hearing. Our planner begins by presenting information from his report as well as his recommendations to council. Council members can then ask questions for clarification through the chair. We will then hear from the applicant, followed by those who have registered to speak in favor, those who are opposed, and from those who have registered for more information. At the end of these presentations, the applicant will have an opportunity to respond. At that time, no new information can be presented. Council members will have the opportunity to ask questions for clarification to the applicant or anyone registered to speak on the planning item. All questions must be made through the chair as per our procedural bylaw. And we ask to ensure a smooth process and so that everyone is heard, that you are on mute until it is your turn to come up, and then we look forward to hearing from everyone registered to speak. And that is all of the comments I have regarding our planning process. Our first item, 5.1, was withdrawn. 5.2, I will read the resolution to open the public hearing. Be it resolved that the meeting of council recessed for the purpose of holding a public hearing pursuant to Section 96A of the Planning Act. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Link. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. Mr. Planner, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the first application before you tonight is variance number 4 of 2021. This is to increase the maximum permitted site coverage at 39 Shaw Road. So this is in the RG residential general zone. In that zone, there's a maximum site coverage of 20%. Now, site coverage is the percentage of the lot area that's covered by the ground floor of the main building and would include any attached structures such as a garage or, in this case, a proposed screen room. So the proposed screen room would result in a site coverage of 21.3%. And again, the maximum permitted in the RG zone is 20%. So the property is located in the Lister Rapids subdivision, as you can see by the context map before you. Looking in a little closer, what this location map does not show is that Shaw Road has been extended and some of these properties have been developed. When it comes to this particular property, a permit was issued in December 2020 for a single family dwelling with an attached garage. The screen porch was removed from the plans at that time in order to comply with the site coverage regulation. So the applicant applied for a building permit. It had a screen porch. It was over the site coverage, and so the applicant opted to remove the screen porch and apply for a variance, this variance application subsequently. So that single-family dwelling is currently under construction. So the lot, just over 16,000 square feet in size, located on the east side of Shaw Road. As you can see by the site plan submitted by the applicant, the screen porch is located to the rear of the dwelling that's currently under construction. It's 14 feet by 16 feet in area for a total square footage of 224 square feet. So this would result in the site coverage being exceeded by 212 square feet, or 1.3%. The applicant did also submit some building plans, which will give council an idea of where the screen room is located in relation to the rest of the house. So as you can see, it is in the rear. They also submitted elevation drawings before you now. As you can see by the front elevation, the screen room cannot be seen directly from the street. It is located in the rear yard, as you can see by the right elevation, the rear elevation, and the left elevation before you now. So the proposed variance would be a minor increase, and the location of the proposed screen porch in the rear yard means that the character of the streetscape would not be changed if council should approve this variance. Council did approve a similar variance to allow for a site coverage of 21.5% at 26 Shaw Road, which is just across the street from the subject property, and that was approved by council last August. So this application is substantially similar to that application. Our administration has indicated they have no comment in regards to this application. And the photo before council now is a photo that was taken at the end of January. As you can see, as I mentioned previously, the dwelling is currently under construction. So should council approve this application, we recommend the following conditions. First, that the variance is limited to increase the maximum permitted site coverage in order to allow for construction of a screen room in the rear yard of the subject property as proposed. Any changes will require a new variance approval. And second, that the applicant/owner is to obtain all required permits and approvals, including but not limited to those from the Red River Planning District. And that's all I have for this application, Madam Mayor. Of course, we welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. I will go around the virtual council table here and see if there are any questions for you. Councillor Link, any questions for the planner on this application?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bichetti, any questions for the planner?
Just more of a comment. In a variance like this on a building, can it not be done through the planning, through Red River Planning on 10% variance increase?
So unfortunately, the RM of West St. Paul zoning bylaw only allows for in-house variances related to yard requirements.
Oh, okay.
So this is site coverage, so it wouldn't fall into that.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify.
Thank you. Councillor Kleiber, any questions for the planner? Okay, thank you. And Councillor Pereg?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. And no questions from me as well. Thank you. Ms. Elias, do we have the applicant? Oh, sorry, Councillor Link, go ahead. I see your hand up.
I'm sorry, but I didn't hear the planner's response to Councillor Bichetti.
Sure.
So the RM zoning bylaw allows for in-house variances within 10% of yard requirements. So this is a site coverage requirement, not a yard requirement. So the zoning bylaw does not allow for in-house variances for this type of variance.
Thank you.
And I see we have the applicants joining us this evening. Mr. and Mrs. Bruno, is that correct? I'm reading your name wrong.
Yeah, it's Bruno and Bridget Falcone.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I don't know, did you get an opportunity to hear the planner's presentation on your application?
We did.
Okay, is there anything else that you are wanting to add for council?
No, I believe not. We just wanted to be here to answer any questions. I think we put in a variance letter describing our situation. So if you guys had a chance to look at that through the documentation, we're good.
Great. Thank you. I'll go around the table here and see if there are any questions for you. Councillor Bichetti, any questions for the applicants?
No, just good on you for taking it off your original building plan and coming in for this prior to building it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kleiber, any questions for the applicants? Okay, thank you. Councillor Pereg, any questions?
No problem.
Thank you. And Councillor Link, any questions?
No questions. The letter is very clear. Thank you.
And no questions from me as well. Your letter was very clear. Thank you both. And we do appreciate you submitting.
Thank you.
Right, if you're wanting to stay on, we're going to see if there's anyone registered in support, in opposition, or for information, and then you'll have an opportunity to speak again if if there's anybody that's registered.
Thank you.
Great. Ms. Elias, do we have anybody registered to speak in support, opposition, or for information?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We also have Jeff Barrettson registered in favor of the application. He was the applicant. We don't have anyone registered against or for information.
And no one is wanting to speak?
No one else with us this evening, no.
Okay, that's great. All right, I guess I'll ask you guys if you have anything else to add. Otherwise, we'll move to close the public hearing and vote on the matter.
We don't. Thank you.
Great, thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you.
All right. I will read the resolution to close the public hearing and we can discuss. Be it resolved that council do hereby close the public hearing and resume the regular meeting of council. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Prague. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And I will read the resolution. With me here. All right. Whereas an application for variance order 4-21 was received for the property located at 39 Shaw Road to increase the permitted site coverage for a main building in the RG residential general zone from required 20% maximum to 21.3% maximum. And whereas under the provisions of the Planning Act, a public hearing has been held to hear representations both for and against the application. Therefore, be it hereby resolved that after careful consideration, Council of the RM of West St. Paul hereby approve variation order 4-21 with the following conditions. One, that this variance is to increase the maximum permitted site coverage in order to allow for the construction of a sunroom in the rear yard of the subject property as proposed. Any changes or replacement will require a new variance approval. 2, applicant owner to obtain all required permits and approvals, including but not limited to those from Red River Planning District. A variance order will expire and cease to have any effect if it is not acted upon within 12 months of the date of decision. A board, council, or planning commission may extend the deadline under subsection 1 for an additional period not longer than 12 months if an application is received before the initial deadline. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded by Councillor Prague. Any discussion? Councillor Kleiber?
Planner mentioned that this is the second time we've had a variation in this area, so I'm a little concerned about that. I don't want people to get into the habit of building their houses and then coming back for a bunch of variances because they're not following the coverage. Having said that, this is a fairly large lot, 16,000 square feet, so I don't have an issue with it, but I guess we should really pay attention to too many variances coming back. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mayor Christian? It's a little concerning. I don't want people building their houses and then adding on to them saying, oh, well, didn't figure for that. That should be something that they should take into account right on the outset. So while I don't have any opposition to this, we need to just kind of keep that in mind.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. Any other comments from council? Yeah, good points raised. I would say this one is 1.3%. I guess the option for them, if it wasn't approved by council, would be to make their sunroom just slightly smaller. But I think it's good that what I like to see on this application is they haven't built it yet. And it's very challenging when it comes to council and they're asking for forgiveness after the fact. So I respect that these homeowners haven't built it and they've come to ask for permission, which is a good thing. All right, seeing no further comments then, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. All right, we are 5.3. And I will read the resolution to open the public hearing. Be it resolved that this meeting of council recess for the purpose of holding a public hearing pursuant to section 96A of the Planning Act. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Prague, seconded Councillor Kleiber. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Thank you. And Mr. Planner, I will turn it back over to you.
Madam Mayor, so variance number 10 of 2021 is to increase the maximum permitted front yard at 407 Slater Road. So new dwellings on Slater Road, the front yard must be between 50 and 75 feet. The applicant's requesting a front yard of 100 feet in order to allow for construction to continue on a new single-family dwelling on the subject property, which is zoned RRO, Rural Residential Overlay. So as you can see on the context map here, the lot is located on the north side of Slater Road. It's approximately 2.1 acres in size, and not shown on this aerial photo. The adjacent property to the west, 451 Slater, has been developed with the dwelling, as well as some of the properties to the south of Slater Road have been developed. So that requirement for new dwellings on Slater Road to have a front yard between 50 and 75 feet was adopted back in May 2016. The intent, as per the planner's report for that amendment application, was to maintain a consistent neighborhood character. That regulation replaced a previous requirement that new dwellings were to be within 10%, to have a front yard within 10% of the front yard of adjacent dwellings. So our office issued a permit for a single-family dwelling with an attached garage back in December of 2020. The approved site plan submitted with that application proposed a front yard of 75 feet, which is the maximum permitted for new dwellings on Slater Road, as I previously mentioned. After the construction on the house was started, it was brought to the Red River Planning District's attention that the house was being constructed with a greater front yard than what was approved. And our office notified the applicant to cease all construction work until the issue was addressed. Now, that was back on January 18th. Construction was still ongoing as of January 27th, when our bylaw enforcement officer visited the property. So this is the applicant's site plan submitted with the variance application. As you can see, there's a front yard being proposed of 100 feet. So this is similar to the site plan that was submitted with the building permit, except the building permit site plan showed a front yard of 75 feet instead of the 100 feet. The applicant also submitted their lot grade plan, which is shown here. And now this does show a front yard of 30.48 meters, which translates to 100 feet. And while this was provided to the RM for the lot grade permit, the setbacks and compliance with zoning bylaw requirements are not reviewed by the RM as part of the lot grade permit process. That is the responsibility of the RRPD. And on the building permit that was issued, it was clearly stated that the approved front yard was 75 feet. Now, because there's no aerial photos that show the existing dwellings, what I've done is trace the outline of the buildings from information that we had on file, just to give council a general idea of where these buildings are located on these two lots. So as the note states, this is for general reference only. The locations are approximate, but what it gives council an idea of is where the proposed dwelling that's under construction at 407 Slater Road is located in relation to the existing dwelling at 451. And I've just drawn a line across the two lots here to show that where the new dwelling is being constructed is almost entirely in the rear yard of the property at 451 Slater Road. So what council must consider is whether the proposed variance will be compatible with the general nature of the area and whether it will negatively affect other properties. So as I mentioned, this adjacent property at 451 Slater Road has been developed with a house that has a front yard of 52.03 feet. So the proposed 100-foot front yard for the dwelling at 407 would result, as I mentioned, in the front of the dwelling at 407 being located to the rear of the dwelling at 451. So the proposed 100-foot setback is almost double the 52.03 feet that the dwelling at 451 has. Although I will mention there is over 200 feet between the two dwellings. And the property to the east is an undeveloped road right of way. So since the report, Manitoba Infrastructure has indicated that they do not object to the variance as the property does not front on a road under their jurisdiction. Finally, I just wanted to show several photos that I took on January 27th. So again, as I previously mentioned, our office notified the applicant that all work on the dwelling was to cease on January 18th. When I visited the property to take photos on the 27th, as you can see here, there were construction crews on site and work was ongoing. So later that day, the Red River Planning District bylaw enforcement officer did visit the property, cleared the workers off site, and stickered the building indicating that no further work was to take place. But again, that was 9 days after the applicant was initially told to cease construction on the dwelling. Should council approve this application, our office recommends the following conditions. First, that the variance is to increase the maximum permitted front yard for a new dwelling on Slater Road. As proposed, any changes may require a new variance approval. And number two, that the applicant/owner obtains all required permits and approvals, including but not limited to those from the Red River Planning District and RM of West St. Paul. That's all I have for this application, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. I will go around the council table. Councillor Kleiber, any questions for the planner?
There. Finally, Mr. Planner, this house has a basement in it, right? It looks like it has a basement. It's not on piles, correct?
Yeah, that might be a question for the applicant just to clarify. That's what it looks like to me, but I don't have that information.
Okay. And let me ask you a question. According to your office, your expectation is that we either approve this variance or the alternative is that they take down all the framing. And if they have a basement, they'd have to rip their basement out and move it up 25 feet. Is that correct?
Well, council has three options. So council can approve the application,
Okay.
which conditions as is, meaning construction can continue. Council can approve the application with some conditions added, as I believe the neighbor will speak to. A possibility could be that if council is concerned about the privacy between the two properties, a row of trees, for example, could be constructed, or a fence. So that's the second option, is approved with conditions. And the third option is to deny the application, in which case the applicant would be responsible for bringing the structure into compliance. Now that could be, for example, by demolishing what's been built and rebuilding it in the proper location. It could also mean, for example, putting an addition onto the front of the dwelling that's 25 feet or greater in depth. That would mean that the front yard setback is in compliance with that 75 feet. So those are the three options that the council has.
So they could add on to the front of it 25 feet and then they'd be in compliance.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you. That's what information I needed.
Thank you. Councillor Pereg, any questions for the planner?
Yeah, you said another thing they can look at is buffering. Am I correct?
Council can add any conditions they deem necessary to ensure that the variance will not negatively affect other properties. So if there's concerns about privacy related to the location of the dwelling in relation to the adjacent, some sort of buffering, excuse me, or visual barrier, whether it be in the form of fencing or trees, council can certainly require that through conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Link, any questions for the planner?
Hi, Mr. Planner. When the building permit was taken out on December 11th, I believe, and it was the Pollock and Wright survey plan that was the engineered drainage plan that was presented and recorded on the permit, I believe. Did anybody speak with the applicant and point out that this plan with a frontage of a front setback of 100 feet or 30.48 meters was not within the zoning regulations? I would hope that somebody spoke with him and pointed out that was the case.
Sorry, if there's nothing else, I can respond to that. So this lot grade plan was submitted to the RM as part of the lot grade permit process. That's a separate application from the building permit application that's submitted to the Red River Planning District. So this plan was not submitted to the Red River Planning District. It was submitted to the RM, but the RM does not review this lot grade plan for compliance with the zoning bylaw requirements. It was not brought to the RM's attention as per administration that the setback was being increased to 100 feet. So the first that the Red River Planning District knew about this was when we received a complaint from the RM that the building wasn't being constructed where it had been approved.
Just to follow up, so the plot plan in your report, Mr. Planner, is that what was submitted as a site plan to Red River Planning District?
Yes, this is the site plan that was submitted with, of course, the difference being that it showed a front yard of 75 feet, whereas this site plan has been amended for the variance application to show what's actually being constructed, which is 100 feet.
Okay, so what was submitted to you was a 75-foot setback, and what was submitted to the RM back in November, I believe, was a 75-foot setback. And it was clear on the building permit that setback was 75 feet. And, okay, I'll have questions for, is Ms. Elias here?
Yes.
May I ask Ms. Elias some questions?
Sure. Ms. Elias?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Payton. I guess what I'm getting at, Ms. Elias, what I'm thinking is this applicant got presented a site plan, and he got a lot grading. What did he get? A lot on November the 13th. I think he got a permit. Now, with that permit, what does he get? He gets elevations that his house must be built to, but no setbacks are on that plan. Am I correct there?
Thank you, Councillor Link. For our office at the RM, the applications that we receive would be for the approach and for the lot grade permit application. What was submitted with the application we received originally was a site plan that showed a 75-foot setback for the front yard. We also received a lot grade plan that was forwarded to our engineer. The engineer reviewed to just confirm that the grades were appropriate. As you can see here, that did indicate a setback of 30 meters. That wasn't something that was reviewed by our office, though. And my understanding was there was no indication provided that there was a request to change the front yard setback from the original site plan that we received. For the building permit, that would be issued through Red River Planning.
Okay. Now, when you do a lot grading permit, are there any inspections that go along with that lot grading permit?
There
Prior-
would be inspections for grade. So our surveyors, they would set the initial landscape grade elevation before the building is started. Once
Okay,
the building's in place and the landscaping's ready to be done, they would go back, set the grade elevations. Once that is complete, they'll do a final grade inspection.
but they don't take into consideration the setback, you say?
Not our surveyor, no.
I'm a bit surprised at that, but anyway. And so you say the engineer refused to okay that drainage plan, or that, what do you call it? A survey plan?
No, it was submitted and approved by our engineer.
Oh, it was
Then-
approved.
Yes, again, what they're reviewing would be the grades.
Okay, they wouldn't pay attention at all to the setback.
Correct.
Okay, maybe we've learned a little bit from this. Anyway, looks like maybe there's a bit of a hole in the recognition of some of the information. Okay, I'll have questions for the applicant then. Thank you so much, Ms. Elias.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to keep going around the table, Councillor Bichetti, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Kleiber, just to make sure everybody's had a chance to speak. Councillor Bichetti, any questions for the planner?
I guess it's well, it's already this far, and even the neighbor that has put in I guess an objection on it has stated that, and the planner has said it. But if we're gonna look at trees, can we look at some kind of tree area that's, you know, a 4-season kind of tree, something that's gonna give them some coverage year round? That's all I want to add on that. So.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kleiber, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I'll take my hand down. Mr. Patton, question for you. I know, having built my house in West St. Paul, that there are inspections all the way through. So my question to you is, before they poured the basement or after they poured the basement, did Red River Planning inspect?
So there were a number of inspections that were completed. The first one on December 14th, the next one on December 21st, and the final inspection before the complaint was January 5th. But none of those inspections, the inspectors don't review the location of the building. So, for example, there's no requirement for the applicant to submit a survey plan. For example, showing where the footings are before a foundation is poured. So that's not something that was reviewed or is typically reviewed as part of the inspection process for the Red River Planning District.
So how did it come to be that this was suddenly flagged? Was it the neighbors that flagged it? Who flagged that it was 75 feet? If we didn't flag it through the 3 inspections, when I look at the memo, it does say that at one point you ordered them to stop building. So at one point, one of the inspections, you caught it, right?
So our office became aware of the non-compliance issue through a complaint that was directed to us from the RM.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councillor Craig, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
The planner indicated that there can be some buffering to solve this problem. And I read in the package, a letter came in about the neighbor who's opposing this is kind of agreeable to a buffer here. So we know the property is already up. You know, it costs substantial money to tear that thing down. And seeing the person in opposition here is we can work together with the applicant to solve this quite amicably. From the planner said, yeah, that it can work that way. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Prague. I just have one question for the planner. Do we have a staking certificate process in place for basements? I seem to remember that previous council brought into place a staking certificate process because we were seeing so many variances on basements located in the wrong location, right? 1 foot from the property line or 2. Is that process taking place for staking certificates?
No, not the typical process does not involve verification of the footings prior to any work being done. That's something that could be looked at. I'm not sure if it would require a zoning bylaw amendment, but it is a requirement. For example, in the city of Selkirk, in some instances, if the proposed building is within a certain distance of the property line, staking certificate is required in Selkirk. So that's something that could be looked at moving forward, but it's not currently the process.
Thank you. Ms. Elias, do we have the applicant on the line?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have Goldie Gooman with us this evening.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Gooman.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
You've been able to hear the discussion of council here and the planner's report. Is there anything that you're wanting to add about what's gone on here?
Yes, please. First of all, I want to start with, I want to apologize. We are in this situation. We build a number of houses in West St. Paul, and this is the first time that, something like this happened. So, it's not that we are taking any authority or anything lightly. It was an honest mistake. And, the paperwork that was submitted to RM and RRPD, there was a difference there. So someone from our office, made this mistake. But, I just want to add one thing. When there was a work stop order that was placed, we did stop the construction, and the framers went back to make sure the walls that were in place, they are safe. Because if there's a storm or anything, we don't want anyone to get hurt, and that all that wood flying everywhere in the neighborhood. Our office, I was told that our office got a call from RRPD the day the framers showed up after that date to brace those walls, that we are not allowed to continue construction. And our office told them, RRPD, anyone who was calling from there, that framers are making sure that the building is safe. They don't want to finish the house, but they want to make sure the building is safe and bring it to at that point where they are okay. But when RRPD told them that they have to stop it, doesn't matter. So the framers were offsite within an hour or two. So, but at the same time, I hear that there is one neighbor or number of neighbors who feel that this house, when this is built, that it will interfere in their privacy and everything. So we are willing to work with the neighbors. Anything the council want us to do, we're okay. We're open to anything. And any questions? Yeah, I'm done with my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gooman. Thank you very much. I'm going to go around the council table and see if there are questions for you. And I will start with Councillor Prague. Any questions for Mr. Gooman?
Yeah, Mr. Gooman, thank you for coming out and say this happened, and I thank you. Good thinking of getting that property secured before it flies all over the place. And we know in those open areas there are heavy winds. And I thank you for doing that. And it seems from what you're saying and the letter that the opposition sent, you are more than willing to work together with them and the RM to rectify this problem. And I must compliment you on that, for stepping forward and not finding excuses. It's very nice of you to admit this is what happened, and you guys are prepared to work this problem out. And thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Prague. Councillor Link, any questions for Mr. Guman?
Yes, I do. And I appreciate that you're very willing to work with the neighbors now as well. Mr. Guman, I wonder, the owner, you say in your letter of intent, wanted the 100-foot setback instead of 75 feet. And the owner, you're the builder, I'm assuming. So the owner said to the builder, I would want that setback at 100 feet. What did you tell the owner about that change when they asked for the change?
Yeah, so the owner proposed it, and you know what? I want, when we are done with it, I want to add something with this. You know, being a builder, I have a suggestion that we should have a better connection with RRPD and RM, because when we deal with any zoning issues and all that, we are told by RRPD, it's RM you have to deal with. And here, the paperwork that was submitted to RM, it shows 100 feet setback. So for us, it's okay. We got an approval on the, even though it was a lot grade plan. So for us, RM is aware of it, and zoning, it's RM's issue, not RRPD. So that's how it was changed. But usually we submit a plan revision application with RRPD that should have been done on time, and got approval from RRPD. But as I said, someone missed it. It's our mistake, and you know, we feel sorry, and we want to make sure, you know, this doesn't happen again.
Mr. Guman, I think I heard Ms. Elias say that the site plan that was submitted to the RM had a 75-foot setback.
No, sorry, no, it was 100 feet. It was 100 feet. It was 30 meters, that's 100 feet.
But the permit, no, not the permit, but you did submit a site plan when you asked for the permit, correct?
Yes, please.
And that site plan was for 75 feet setback.
Correct.
So you knew it was the setback was supposed to be 75 feet. You were aware of the zoning at that time.
You know what, as I said, we build houses in West St. Paul, and our other lots, we have up to 100 feet we can go back. This particular street, I don't know, it's for zoning reasons or something, that was here, you cannot go back more than 50 feet. If we would have known that it was 75 was our limit, there was no point that we would have built a house. I know that if a council doesn't approve it, then we have to demolish that. We spent almost $300,000 on the house. No one wants to take that chance.
Okay, my comment here, Mr. Guman, at this point in time is, as an experienced builder, I would think that it would be a matter of course that you would check out the zoning setbacks before you began your project. I'm really quite surprised that you didn't do that.
It's done.
Yes, it is. It's done.
Yes, but you know what? We always do it at the time of planning when so it was at 75 feet and we were within limits. when it was changed to 75 feet, requested by the buyer. At that point, yeah, that's what I said. Someone from our office missed that. Yes, it was missed, and we all learned the lesson, and it's an honest mistake. So we will be
Yes.
more careful.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's two jurisdictions you have to deal with. They both want different pieces of documentation, and I understand that it can be confusing.
Yes, please. Thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bichetti, any comments, questions for Mr. Gooman?
Yes. First of all, thanks. You admitted, it was a mistake. You've built in other areas in West St. Paul. We have a lot of different zones in the area. I'm sure it's not going to happen again because you don't want to go through this. But you've admitted to it. You're saying that you're going to work with the RM and the neighbor to make do with what you have now. You're not going to, like you said, you're not going to tear down $200,000 to $300,000. Well, I guess if we asked you to, you're going to, but to work with the best of what we can here. And it's good to hear you say that, you are willing to work with the neighbor to, buffer, as Councillor Paraga said. And yeah, you've admitted to it, and I'm sure your office will be double checking all of this in the different areas you've been building in.
No, for sure. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we'll make sure that doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Councillor Bichetti. My comments are similar to the councillors. I really thank you, Mr. Gooman, for coming forward and for acknowledging the mistake made. You're a West St. Paul business, and I know you're building homes in lots of different areas. And I know it is challenging. In 2016, the council approved different setbacks for different streets. So they're not even really connected with our zones. They're street specific. So I know it is challenging. But definitely I can understand residents' concerns here when we try to create a streetscape that is consistent. And that's why previous council approved that in 2016. So I do appreciate you acknowledging this is a mistake. And I very much hope that we can work through this and add some conditions satisfactory to the neighbor here to add some buffering and deal with this.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, well, I'm willing to work with the neighbor and council.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
I wasn't given an opportunity to speak yet, so that's why I put my hand up. Mr. Gooman, I guess we can say we blew it here, hey?
Yeah. I didn't expect it that we have to meet like this. Sorry, it's a mistake. Yes.
And I think you have some homes on Maglis. Is that where you have some of your other buildings?
Yeah, Maglis and Fife. Addis. Yes.
I know of a few homes that you've already built. So I think that what council's talking about is buffering. We'll have to see how your neighbor feels about that. Have you had a conversation with the neighbor as to what they're looking for?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so we're going to do that today. And I just put up some trees myself a couple of years ago, and I put up some Scotch pine. A lot of people like spruce. They are expensive. You are aware that if we ask you to buffer, it's going to cost some money. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, you know what? It's we made a mistake and we're willing to pay for it. That's fine.
Yeah, it's the trees can be quite expensive, but I think that in order to make this right, you might have to put some money in the trees. Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber, and I apologize for missing you on that go round there. All right, Ms. Elias, do we have anyone registered to speak in support, opposition, or for information?
No one else in support. We do have Rod and Carly Cockerline registered against. No one for information. And we have Rod, I believe, is with us this evening.
Welcome,
good
Rod.
evening.
Mr. Cockerline, thank you for attending tonight. Council received your letter earlier in in the day. And if there's other information that you'd like to provide for council, now's the opportunity. We're glad that you're joining us this evening.
Great. And my wife Carly is joining me here.
Thank you both.
I won't say I'm going to be an expert at this because I've never been down this path before, right? But I guess just overall, we're just quite disappointed because having gone through the building process and doing the due diligence on every step, like when we had a hole and they staked the foundation, we came out and make sure it was within the allowable setbacks, both of side property and front. So it's just completely foreign to us that we look out the side of our house and our dining room and we see this hole set back so far that no one thought that that wasn't right. So, so I think if a lot of the concerns are stated in the letter, I believe everyone's had a chance to read that. Is that how this works?
Sorry. Yes. Yep. We've all had an opportunity to look at your letter. Thank you for submitting that.
Okay, our pleasure. So again, the main pain points for us is going to be, you know, we're sitting in our dining room, which is in the back of our house, you know, with 270-degree windows. You know, and you got to think of the reason we moved to West St. Paul. We wanted a little bit of space. We wanted some privacy. We didn't want someone on the deck beside us asking what's on the barbecue. Or, you know, now we're going to find that these people, because they're setbacks so far, that you know, they're going to be able to look through the window and see what we're watching on television, and that's just not the flavor of why we chose to do what we did and move to West St. Paul. So, you know, with sitting on our back deck, when that's going to come, or even on a patio chair, you know, to see who's coming and going in the neighboring lot, you know, just isn't really ideal, right? You know, if it was within the allowable setbacks, looking east and west, we would kind of just share everybody's backyard. But now we're going to feel like they're kind of in our backyard, and that's not again the feel we want. Another big concern is just the devaluation of our property. So you can see on the screen we chose to build on the west half of our 2.5 acres. If we decide to, and with a variance applied or approved, we would have that lot between us available for sale. The idea is to handpick a neighbor and live a happy life out here in West St. Paul. And now what? Those people, if they choose to do a setback of 50 feet like us, are they going to feel even more so like a big home and their backyard is right on top of them? So I don't know what that valuation is, or the devaluation of our property. Hard to put a number to that. So what do we do? Do we build privacy fences? Do we do a lot of changes in our landscaping design to try and mask this? I get it. The builder made a mistake. It's interesting. The homeowner asked for it and they got it without really doing their due diligence, but mistakes can happen, but it's all to the expense of us. And I don't know how to best settle this, but I think everyone can understand that we would be frustrated.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's going to change the entire character of the street as things develop. Like, what if the property to the east of us decides to also set back 100 feet because you can just do whatever you want? Well, we're going to have two houses right in our backyard then. So we, again, the reason we moved to West St. Paul is we wanted some space, and we feel like we're kind of getting a little of that taken away from us. And we want to make absolute sure that precedent isn't set, that new neighbors, ones that we choose to have to the east of us, or if someone buys and builds the lot to the west of us, we want to make sure they're
Are you still there? I haven't lost you. Mr. Cockerland, are you still there? Okay, good. Thank you. Well, we appreciate you coming to share your concerns. I'm going to go around our virtual council table here and see if there are any questions for you. Councillor Bichetti, any questions?
Just more of a comment. I agree with you, Mr. Coughlin. It's not something I think you should go around and change your landscape design on, since it's a mistake of the other builders. And it's good to see in your letter that, you know, you stated that it is up, and the developer has also admitted to the mistake. So I think working together to see what kind of buffering, and you asked for some trees, and I brought it up earlier saying, you know, if it could be like a 4-season tree that would constantly be, you know, with some bloom on it, so that it would give you some privacy to your yard. So, but it's good to see that you understand it's up. You know, we don't want to cause hardship, but at the same time, it's influenced, you know, it's affected you on what you thought you wanted to build too. So I just want to commend you on the letter that you understand that, you know, it's up. So let's work with it and try to make the best of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kleiber, any questions for Mr. Cockerland and Mrs. Cockerland?
Hi, Rod. Is it okay if I call you Rod?
Please.
I don't want to mess up your last name. Okay, well, you're both in my ward, and so I feel for both of you. And I guess, you know, this gentleman messed up. And whether it was deliberate or not deliberate, it is what it is. And so I would find it very difficult as a counselor to ask somebody to rip out $300,000 worth of a home. And I think you probably agree with me, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not realistic as far as it got built and as the way it is today. Yes.
There obviously was somewhere here, somebody dropped the ball. I think that as a RM, we have to kind of go back and find out where. I think that, you know, people have to be aware of what the development agreements are when they build, and that's a major thing. What you mentioned spruce trees in your letter, and I just buffered my property, and I use Scotch pine just because Scotch pine's fuller, and so when it grows, it grows full all the way up. Do you have a preference to spruce? Do you like spruce better, or do you think it'll be more advantageous as far as sightlines are concerned?
I think it was just a thought and a comment. I don't think we're that specific, but I just think the importance of it is that in the winter, because we know this is all, we live here all year round. We want this as a constant. So I think we're open to different ideas. We just wanted to ensure that it was all year round.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I went with Scotch was it was just cheaper than spruce. It was very expensive, and when spruce grows, of course, you have that trunk, right? And so you don't get that same coverage and that depth that you want. And so I'm going to ask you, how far apart do you want those trees, and how far back do you want them?
I don't know.
No, I'm asking the question, and you know why? Because it's important for you. And so, you know, you've said, we got a sightline problem here. Fair enough. All right, let's deal with the sightline problem. Do you want it to extend from the front of the property to the back of the property? How far back do you want it to go?
I guess we haven't put thought into it. I think one of our major concerns is what's going to give us some height. That house is very high to begin with. Somebody standing on that front step is, no matter what you build or what you put there, they're going to see over it. So I think height's important to us. I don't know. I guess we don't have landscaping background, so I'm not even sure how we can answer that. But if there's a solution for height, that's important to us as well.
Yeah, and that's the reason I'm asking it, because sometimes what you want to do is if we put a condition in there for trees, you want to put a height specification as a minimum, right? Because somebody could say, well, I'll plant trees and they're 3 feet tall. Well, that's not going to help you, is it?
Right.
You want a higher tree, right? So we have to kind of come up with a minimum height so that it's going to, at least at the very beginning, it's going to grow, obviously. but the minimum height specification so that it does buffer you properly. And would you prefer trees over a fence? That's the other thing I was going to ask you.
I think well, absolutely yes, because we talk about the change of the character of the street, and a fence going north-south there wouldn't look good for anybody. So
yeah, I agree.
So for sure. Now, with that said, trees don't grow very well here on Slater Road. So
I have the same problem on Grassmere Road.
So a temporary solution, a little stick tree, and this is over with, isn't going to be good enough, because we need something like a Scotch pine that fills in and is green for 4 seasons. And it's going to be green in the year 2040 as well, because I still plan on being here.
Yeah, a Scotch pine actually takes quite well. I have very clay soil, and it took very well to my soil. But it does take time to grow, so that's why I'm asking. We need to possibly look at a minimum height here for you.
Well, and maybe 2 layers, right? Maybe I wish I was an arborist, but I think maybe a Scotch pine row and then have a towering something else. Okay. Again, I would want to consult with somebody that knows something about this, but
yeah, that's why I'm scared to put a condition in right now that we don't really know what we should be doing to buffer, like what we can do. I mean, poplars are really tall too. I have poplars. They grow quick and they're tall. That might be a second row that you could go with, and buffered with the Scotch pine. That's exactly what I did. Okay, well, thank you for the ideas, and I totally understand where you're coming from, and I think that the builder does too. And so if we can work together to resolve the issue somehow, that'd be great.
And that then compensates us for the potential devaluation of our property if we choose to subdivide and sell that lot.
Yeah, and I think the trees would be a good addition and a good border, even if you decide to subdivide. So if we can get a win-win situation here, I think it's a great thing. We can do it. Thanks for your ability to be flexible with it.
Well, I think we got to be reasonable. So, one other thing I want to make sure we talk about is, for how long are these trees going to be alive?
Well, I think that we can talk about that as council, is maybe a minimum height to start, and that, maybe that's something that has to remain on the property for the life of the property. But we'll see what our mayor says, and what we can do that's reasonable. So, what would your suggestion be? Would you want it for the life of the property?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Maintained for the life of the property. Okay. All right. Well, good to know. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. Councillor Prague, any questions, comments?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. and Mr. Cockburn for being so understanding. I understand where they're coming from. And I know trees grow differently in different parts of West St. Paul. There's an old councillor over here. The Scotch pine died. It didn't work. Our CEO is an arborist. He's a qualified arborist. So the applicant can work together with Mr. and Mr. Cockburn, and the CEO can give some of his thoughts into it. And I agree, it's a long-term, we're looking for a long-term solution, not short-term. When the trees die, what happens then? So we have to have stipulations there for long-term. And if we have to put 2 layers of trees, agreeable. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor. I echo the concerns and questions from our council. I appreciate you both coming to speak with us. Councillor Link, do you also have questions?
Yes, I haven't had a chance to speak with the residents yet. I can relate to this situation because, well, quite a number of years ago now, there was a basement being dug pretty close to us. And all the neighbors got to talking and sort of said, well, this house is going to be 25 feet closer to the road than we are. The street's going to look strange. The counselor of the day went out because somebody called him, and he went to chat. They had already poured the piles, which is an expensive proposition, but they just hadn't thought about it and realized things had to change. So they just gave up the fact that, and they poured new piles and changed the location of their basement. Fortunately, it was caught soon enough. I agree with Councillor Kleiber. Maybe we have to start, and what you said earlier, having some inspections of the staking before the basements are dug. It might, I mean, this is a once in a blue moon problem, but when it happens, it is a big problem. I got to throw in my 2 cents about the trees. Poplar are not long-lived, and they sucker all over the place. Manitoba white cedar grows fast, and it grows pretty much anywhere. And I think it's fairly long-lived. But anyway, it's a consultation with somebody who is well-schooled in trees. Also, what helps a great deal is the tree line has to be amended. If it's soil that's poor, with poor nutrient, it needs to be tested, what kind of soil it is, acid, alkaline, you can do that. It's easily done. And then the tree line can be amended so that the trees have a better chance. Anyway, that can maybe be taken care of in an amended DA, because this property's got a DA on it, right? So maybe we can amend the DA and put in the buffering in the DA. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Link. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Cockerland, it sounds like there's good agreement on council that trees need to be in place and there needs to be some kind of buffer, and that council's agreeing with you that this was not a good mistake to make. And I think everybody is appreciative of the fact that you are so understanding, recognizing what's gone on here. I won't pretend to be an arborist. I have no idea what kind of trees will grow in that soil on your street and what will work. I will say that it is common practice that we've added conditions to approval to make sure that trees are planted and a certain height, a certain number. What I would like to see, and what it sounds like council is saying, is that we want to make sure that anything going forward, that the home builder, property owner is working with you, with the RM, to make sure that this issue is resolved and that the trees put up, whatever's going to grow, is going to truly act like a buffer and provide some long-term buffer for you. To get into specific trees is not my thing, but does that sound like a solution, that if council were to not ask this builder to rip out the basement and create some kind of a buffer, does that sound like a solution that would work for you, where council wants to see the municipality work with you and the builder to select some trees at an appropriate height and ensure that they're going to last?
Yeah, I think that's acceptable to us, and I think I want to make sure that the new homeowners are aware of it. I don't want to be left with the builder puts the trees in and then the homeowners don't maintain them, and us having to call the RM. I don't want to have to be a bother with that. So I'm hoping that the new homeowners can be part of that agreement. I'm not sure how any of that works, but yeah, we would be in agreement if that was possible.
Very good point. Thank you for raising that. Yeah.
So someone has to police that, right? Because if 40% of the trees die, well, they need to be replaced. Is that responsible of the homeowner? I don't know, but I haven't seen a lot of great success growing trees in West St. Paul on Slater Road. So we'll need to put a good plan together. Would it be possible for us to approve a plan?
I would like to see you involved in that process, yes.
Great.
Thank you.
I think council would too, to make sure that we get this right. And I do want to assure you both that the reason we're here tonight is because this was flagged. So this is not something that we accept lightly. We have a process in place since 2016 to try and ensure that streetscapes are consistent. So we're not happy about this. This is a mistake. It shouldn't have been made. We're trying to figure out how to deal with it. But we put that in place in 2016 because we want to have a consistent streetscape. So I don't want you both thinking this is things that are ignored. Red River Planning addressed this. This has come to our attention, and that's why we're here tonight. So, you know, it's a little late when a basement is poured, and we get it, but council does have the right to make them rip it out and start again. I'm hoping we can move forward in a better way, and that this builder that builds on other streets in West St. Paul can learn a real lesson here, and as they move forward, this won't be a mistake they make again.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I think it's hard we're both working from home, and when you see construction continue every day, knowing that we knew at the point that the hole was dug that it carried on, it's been really hard on us. It's been very stressful, and yeah, it's obviously we're reasonable enough, and we'd love to tear it down, but we'll concede that that's not possible. So
we really appreciate you coming tonight, and that you are being flexible. It is very frustrating. Thank you both.
Thanks to all.
Thank you.
Mr. Gooman, you have an opportunity to comment. You've heard what the neighbors say there, and you've heard the concerns discussed by council. Is there anything that you're wanting to add before we close the public hearing and vote on this matter?
No, I just want to say, thank you to the neighbors for being, for understanding. And yeah, we are willing to work with them and see if there's trees or there's some other decorative fencing panels or something, we can add along with the trees. I understand if it was my house, I would feel the same way. So we will make sure, they are satisfied by the solution that's offered, and we will try to, talk to the homeowners and make sure they understand what happened here, and not ignore what's been discussed and suggested at this meeting.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to see if there's any follow-up questions or comments. Is there any further questions for the applicant? Councillor Prague, go ahead.
Mr. Guzman made a good point there. Get the homeowner too, because he's building the house. He'll be gone, and the homeowner has to be there, his signature there, that this is going to be taken care of. I don't want the neighbors phoning in and this is happening, that's happening. So at least we have hard copy, this is being done.
Yeah, very good point, Councillor Prague. Yeah. If there's no other, go ahead, Councillor Bichetti.
So can we add a condition to the variance that the two homeowners, the builder, have to sign off with the CAO, just so that everybody, I know Mr. CAO, we're going to put you into this, kind of as mediator, and you've got some experience with this being an arborist. So just to kind of put it out there, and that way the arm is involved in it and it doesn't slip through the cracks, anything like that. So I'm just wondering if we can put a condition in on the variance, if we approve it. Sorry.
Yep. The CEO was saying yes. Yep, we can. I guess before we move on, the only one other thing that I would want to say, Mr. Gooman, is it puts council in a really awkward position, and I appreciate that you've acknowledged the mistake and grateful that this isn't going to happen again. But even going forward, when wastewater eventually comes down this street, the resident who's going to be in this house 100 feet setback is going to be paying more to run their lines and connect to sewer. So it's a mistake that has immediate implications on the neighbors. And it's a mistake that I believe future council will be resident goes eventually connect up to sewer and is paying significantly for being set back on the road and from eventual infrastructure that will be. I appreciate that, make it right, and I really hope as you continue to build in our community and you're a West St. Paul business, and we're happy to have you here, that you recognize the implications of a mistake like this, that it has in the short term and the long term.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, then I will read the resolution to close the public hearing. Be it resolved that council do hereby close the public hearing and resume the regular meeting of council. Can I have a mover, please? By Councillor Bichetti, seconded by Councillor Link. Any discussion, hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
I had a.
I guess I'm going to look at the.
Oh, sorry. Okay, never mind. I thought that.
Great, go ahead, Councillor.
I thought that we had.
Just close the public hearing.
Sorry. Okay, I'm in favor.
Okay. All good. Close the public hearing. And I'm not sure the process to take here, Mr. Planner, if I should read the resolution and then amend it, or if we should discuss about adding, it sounds like council is wanting to have a condition added about the trees. So rather than go through the whole process of reading it, I'm wondering if you have recommendations based on what you've heard council discuss for a third condition that would address the tree issue in terms of warranty, height, size.
Certainly. So if our administration is amenable, I would recommend that this condition be to amend the development agreement. That has several advantages over just adding the conditions directly into it. First, the development agreement is registered on the title of the property, so that would ensure that moving forward, any new property owners would be aware of this. Whereas if it's just a condition on the variance, then there's no way for future owners to know. The development agreement can also specify penalties for non-compliance or how to deal with enforcement issues. And finally, with the development agreement, the details can be worked out as part of that amending process. They don't necessarily need to be directly into the condition. So with that in mind, my recommendation would be to add a condition, applicant/owner to enter into a development agreement or amend the existing development agreement to require the planting and perpetual maintenance of evergreen trees in order to provide a visual barrier along the western property boundary to the satisfaction of the CAO. I also just want to quickly note before moving forward, just following up on the question about staking certificates. So there is a provision in the bylaw that states that at the discretion of the designated officer or council, a staking certificate with offset pins may be requested prior to foundation being poured. I just wanted to let council know there is something already in the zoning bylaw that would allow our office to require a staking certificate in certain situations.
I thought we had some base. So under what circumstances or conditions would trigger that then if it doesn't happen?
So it's just up to the discretion of the designated officer. So there's no particular condition set out for when this would be required, but typically it would be required if, for example, if the building's being proposed very close to a property line. That's the type of situation where our office might require a staking certificate. But certainly if council wanted to see a more formalized process, that could be a discussion that that the RM could have with the planning district.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the CEO if he has any concerns from an administrative perspective with the condition proposed by the planner, and then I'll go around the council table and see if council is okay with that condition as well. Mr. CEO?
I have no issues, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I saw Councillor Kleiber's hand up. Go ahead, and then Councillor Bichetti.
Well, I'd like to see an additional row of trees, and I think that's what the neighbors asked for. They asked for a row of evergreen and a secondary row to be planted. And I would like to see a condition that trees be planted before the final inspection sign off. so that we don't have people planting trees 2 years from now. So before the final site inspection certificate is provided, those trees have to be planted. And considering that that house is going up now, they should be able to plant those trees this summer. And I also would like the trees to be a minimum height of 6 feet, the evergreens minimum, because there's not going to be anything with 3 feet. And I know you can get spruce that's 6 feet. It's more expensive, but it's definitely possible. And usually the landscaper will take that soil sample and see what else can be put in there. But I think it should go from front to back, from the front of the property to the back of the property. I think that's my opinion. And the secondary row of trees as well, in behind those spruce. And I think that's what the neighbors asked for. And I think they're being very flexible with this and very understanding. So, and I think we should honor what they've asked for. And that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. The wording that the planner has of us amending the DA or creating a new DA allows that then to come to council or approve details. Ms. Elias will work on that draft DA and bring to council for approval, would be my understanding. Is that correct, Mr. CEO? Yes. So that if there's anything in there that council has concerns about, to make sure that we're respecting what these neighbors have raised, we'll come to our council table to approve that amended DA. And that can address, that way we can review and make sure that those issues of double row of trees, of warranty, can be addressed that way in a detailed DA as opposed to a condition. Great points. Councillor Bichetti, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment on what the planner was saying here about the staking certificates. I think we need to get, I don't think there just has to be conditions on this. I think it has to be on every single one, because we've seen this happen multiple times. I know I have in my previous term and this one. And I think, I believe we did ask for that to be a condition in all this. So I'd like this to really push on that one to get that changed, so we don't have to go through this again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Planner, go ahead.
I just wanted to note that I'll certainly bring that up to the director.
Thank you. Councillor Pereg, any comments on the suggestion for adding the condition to amend the development agreement to address this?
No, something on the side there. I think the municipality, the neighbors, the builder, and the homeowner should work out together, not counsel what they suggest, what they want. What they want, they want it down to the end of the thing, that's fine. They have to work it out, not us. They work what they want to satisfy the neighbor there.
Excellent point, Councillor. I think if they can have that discussion before the DA comes to council, so that when we're looking at it, that the conditions in the DA, that the neighbors have seen it, that the new homeowners have seen it, that the builder has seen it, that by the time it comes to us, are you okay with these trees? Are you okay with that? They've had that conversation, as opposed to us imposing something on there when we're not arborists. So I think that is a great point, that if they can come to an agreement and having this condition to amend the DA, they may decide they do want fencing or not, or so they have that discussion and the DA can be amended and come to us. Excellent point. All right, if we're all in agreement, then I'm going to read the resolution as is, and then Councillor Link, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't get an opportunity. I agree with Councillor Kleiber on the 2 rows, and there's fabulous shrubs that are hardy shrubs for Manitoba. I would hope that what happens is that the neighbors go to a couple of different nurseries and get some good advice, and you can get good free advice from people who run nurseries on native trees that do well. and also what you have to do to prepare the soil so that they do have a good chance of getting a good start. And I'm very glad that the neighbors will be working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Link. All right, I will read the resolution, and when it gets to item 3, I'll just refer to you, Mr. Payton, if you don't mind, to read that resolution so we have it correct. Whereas an application for variance order 1021 was received for the property located at 407 Slater Road to increase the permitted front yard for a new dwelling on Slater Road in the RRO Rural Residential Overlay Zone from required 75 feet maximum to 100 feet maximum. And whereas under the provisions of the Planning Act, a public hearing has been held to hear representations both for and or against the application. Therefore, be it resolved that after careful consideration, Council of the RM of West St. Paul hereby approves variation order 1021 with the following conditions. 1, this variance is to increase the maximum permitted front yard for a new dwelling on Slater Road as proposed within the application. Any change in use and or replacement may require a new variance approval. 2, applicant owner obtains all required permits and approvals, including but not limited to those from the Red River Planning District and the RM of West St. Paul. And Mr. Planner, if I can have you read the 3rd condition.
Number 3, applicant/owner to enter into a development agreement or amend the existing development agreement to require the planting and perpetual maintenance of evergreen trees in order to provide a visual barrier along the western property boundary to the satisfaction of the CAO.
Thank you. A variance order will expire and cease to have any effect if it is not acted upon within 12 months of the date of decision. A board, council, or planning commission may extend the deadline under subsection 1 for an additional period not longer than 12 months if an application is received before the initial deadline. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Link, you have a question? Okay, I'll move it first. Just a second. Can I get a mover?
I do have a comment regarding something Councillor Bersetti said earlier. Could we have another condition about the neighbors having input into this? Somehow build a condition in where the neighbors get input. Maybe that's, yeah, I see you kind of hesitant, Mr. Pat.
I think the best way to address that would be through the development agreement amendment process. Council, when the development agreement comes back to council, council can ensure that the neighbors have been consulted.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Prague. Any further discussion? I will ask for a recorded vote. And I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Planner. All right, we are down to item 5.4. I will open up the public hearing. Bear with me here. Be it resolved that this meeting of council recess for the purpose of holding a public hearing pursuant to section 105 of the Planning Act. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Kleiber, seconded Councillor Bichetti. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Mr. Planner, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So conditional use number 1 of 2021 to allow 2 storage containers to remain at 997 Capitalist Drive. The zoning on the property is CH Commercial Highway. As you can see by the context map, the property is located on the east side of Capitalist Drive. It's approximately 1.7 acres in area, and it has been developed with a commercial building despite the out-of-date aerial photography. So the applicant's site plan does show that existing commercial building. It also shows a future second building on the property to the rear. And I just want to point out that Capitalist Drive on this drawing is to the left. The location of the storage containers is shown in the yellow arrow there that I've added. So they are to the rear of that existing building. And again, the applicants indicated a future second building on the site plan, which has not been constructed yet. So there are currently 2 containers on the property that are to the rear of the existing building. They are being used to store building materials and forms for that planned second building that you see on the applicant's site plan. So the applicant's seeking approval to allow the containers to remain on the property for 12 months, and a condition that would limit conditional use approval to that time frame has been added for council's consideration. So storage containers can be used for the storage of construction materials related to a build that's ongoing on the property without requiring council approval. However, in order for that to be permitted, there needs to be a building permit application for the building that's under construction. So the applicant has not yet applied for a building permit to allow for that future second building. And so that's the reason this conditional use is coming to council. Again, the zoning bylaw does allow for storage containers to remain on property for up to 12 months while a building is being constructed. In this case, the applicant has indicated they're not yet ready to apply for the building permit to put up that building, and so the conditional use is required. The applicants also submitted some drawings just showing the containers. They don't show up well on here, but they just give the dimensions of the containers. Each of the 2 containers has a footprint of 20 feet by 8 feet and a height of 8 feet 5 inches. And finally, the photos taken of the subject property at the end of January show that the property, again, the containers are on the property currently, and they are to the rear of that existing building. As you can see here, the surrounding properties are undeveloped. So council has to consider whether the containers are compatible with the general nature of the area. As I mentioned, currently all directly adjacent properties are undeveloped. And I also want to mention that conditional use approvals have been granted to allow storage containers on other properties on Capitalist Drive. So there is a precedent for this. Our administration has indicated they have no comments pertaining to this application. Should council approve the requested conditional use, our office recommends the following conditions. First, that conditional use approval is limited to allow 2 storage containers as proposed. Second, that the applicant is to obtain all required permits and approvals, including but not limited to those from the ROPD and RM of West St. Paul. Just want to note that permits are required for each of the storage containers should council approve this conditional use application. And third and finally, that the conditional use approval will expire 12 months from the date of decision, by which point both storage containers must be removed from the property or new conditional use approval obtained. That's all I have for this application, Madam Mayor, and we'll welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. I'll go around the table and see if there are questions for you. Councillor Link, any questions for the planner on this item?
No, but I comment on that last condition. I like that. And I haven't noticed it before, but I like the wording to say 12 months from the date of decision, by which point both storage containers must be removed. So they've got to be removed, not after a year is over, but before it's up, right? That's the interpretation, Mr. Payton?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Link. Councillor Bichetti, any questions for the planner?
Just more of a comment to that when you're saying the conditions there that we have set precedent with other containers. We also put conditions in setting precedent that fences go up with slats or privacy fence before we would allow any containers to stay there. And I don't see any fencing in that property, so.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kleiber, any questions, comments for the planner?
Yes, Mayor Christian, I recall that these two containers were supposed to be towed. And I recall that we had approved them for being towed and that Red River Planning was supposed to take care of that. So I'd like to ask the planner what happened.
I'm not aware of any previous approvals. Can you expand on that for me, please?
I think we had a resolution at one point that there was a number of properties in that area that were supposed to have the storage containers removed. One of them was Joe Johnson. This was another property. And I think they're 1201 Grassmere, if I'm not mistaken. We had a resolution by council that we had given permission to Red River Planning to remove these. I've sort of been watching the situation to see when they were going to be removed, but they haven't been removed. Now, I might be mistaken, but does anybody else on council recall that? Because I do recall that happened a bit ago. Mayor Christian, do you recall that?
Councillor Prague, you have your hand up. It's just, go ahead.
Yeah, they were given a time limit. I think a year. I'm not sure. They were given a time limit to get it removed, especially Joe Johnson.
Yeah, and I don't think that year is up even yet.
No, it's not up.
Okay, so to the planner then, we've already had this. So he's now applying to keep them there now.
Yeah, so I don't know the details of the resolution council passed, but I can speak to the fact that this has been an ongoing enforcement issue dating back for a number of months. This conditional use approval, if it is granted, would allow for the containers to remain for up to 12 months, and it would halt any enforcement proceedings that are currently ongoing.
Yeah, I think that we had already have a resolution to remove them and that we had approved that. Now, I guess in lieu of that, I guess they're now applying for a conditional use. And I think I don't know if Councillor Rochetti said it or Councillor whoever said it. I agree that we have been only approving one storage container per unit. That's kind of what council came up with. And we said that's what we were going to do for everybody. And I agree with that. I think that needs to remain. And I think this gentleman has already had time. So I'm not willing to go 12 months again. That's just my, go ahead.
Or I can speak to some of the previous conditions where multiple storage containers were proposed. Council put conditions that the number of containers was to be reduced to one within a certain time frame. That was either 12 months or 24 months. In this case, the applicant's only seeking approval for 12 months in total.
Right, but he's already had time because we already have been doing the enforcement and he's complying with the enforcement. So he's run out a whole bunch of time and now he's asking for another year. So I'm not in favor of that because he's had a long time already. I think he's had about a year. So I would be willing to go 6 months on the second one and allow him the one. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. And so I'm just missing on who has not had an opportunity to speak to the planner on this item yet. I just want to make sure everyone's had a chance. Councillor Prague, did you get an opportunity to speak with the planner on this item? Okay. I guess it's a bit confusing here. Mr. Planner, do you have the background file on this? I know we've had a number come forward to council. Is this an item that council previously dealt with within the last year, the last few months, or is this a new commercial business that's coming forward here?
Council has not reviewed a conditional use for storage containers on this property previously.
Okay.
The applicant did apply for a temporary use permit to allow the containers to remain. That our office was unable to issue because there's no ongoing construction. So in order for our office to be able to issue a temporary use permit for a storage container, there needs to be a building permit for construction on the property, and there isn't currently.
Okay, I just want to clarify because I want to make sure that we're not accusing someone of not complying with the decision that we've already made if we've never made a decision on this subject property before. I just want to be clear of what we're doing here on this one. And so what's in the condition is that it would be 12 months while they're doing construction. So this, I just also want to be clear on what this application is asking of council. They're asking us to allow these two to stay while they have construction on a second building. They're not asking for permanent containers, which is something that we've seen other commercial businesses ask us for.
So the applicant's asking for a 12-month period. It's not tied to construction of that second building. So the way that third condition that I read out is worded right now, the conditional use approval, if granted by council, will expire 12 months. That's regardless of whether there's construction ongoing on the property or not. So the condition as written right now does not tie the containers to that construction of the second building. At the end of the 12 months, regardless of what stage the construction is at, the containers would have to be removed or a new conditional use approval obtained.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. So I saw Councillor Link's hand up and then Councillor Kleiber. Councillor Link, go ahead.
Thanks. I think it was conditional use for 2020. And I think that building has got a gym in it. And I think that's what the conditional use was for. And at the time, I don't recall any storage containers. I do recall Mr. Payton's as saying that if they had a number of storage containers, they were allowed to get down to one within a year. And these people don't even want to keep one. So they're willing to get rid of both of them. So that's good. We keep that in the conditions.
I can confirm that a conditional use was granted last year on this property to allow for a fitness center.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
September 18th minutes, 997 capital is C2770105. Discussions, concerns have been brought forward to Red River Planning with respect to 997. Have I got the right address? Is it 997 or is it 977? It's
997.
Right. Okay, concerns have been brought forward, 997 Capitalist in relation to the placement of two 20-foot storage containers in the CH commercial zone. The violation process has reached the final stage with no action being taken by the property owner. Request for compliance, July 8th, notice of violation, July 29th, and we voted on September 18th. That cost would be undertaken to remove these storage containers. So there is a history on this property. And that's why I'm very concerned about now giving this gentleman yet another year when we have already given him time from June of last year. So, and we did vote on them being removed. So now he's waited another 6 months or 7 or 8 months, and now he's going to get an extension of another year. So that's why I'm a little bit concerned here. Like I said, I'm willing to give him 6 months, but I'm not willing to give him another year because this just seems to be dragging out.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. Mr. Payton, I'll refer that back to you just for if there's any further clarification.
Just as I noted in my report, there was a notice of violation sent to the property owner back July 29. That wasn't the first correspondence, but that's when the first official notice of violation was sent. So this, as I mentioned, this enforcement issue does date back to at least last summer.
So just so that I'm clear, we've dealt with a number of these on Capitalist, so I want to be clear of what's gone on. This individual did not come to council with a conditional use. What we voted on was the enforcement aspect. Is that correct? Or we allowed a certain amount of time, or this applicant never came forward and requested a conditional use, and now that we've said we want enforcement, they're now asking for conditional use. I'm just wanting some clarity here.
So this has not come before council in a conditional use before.
Okay.
So this is the first conditional use application for storage containers on this property that's come before council. I can't speak to the resolution of council. It's been mentioned a few times, but I can confirm this is the first conditional use application for the containers that's come before council.
Thank you. I noticed our RM of West St. Paul had their hand up. Is that Ms. Elias wanting to provide any further clarification for council?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just for some additional information, there was a conditional use that went to council on March 12th of 2020. That was for a fitness center. One of the requirements there was that the applicant receive a letter of clearance. That hasn't been able to be issued by the RM due to the storage containers.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Any other further questions for the planner? Okay. Otherwise, Ms. Elias, do we have the applicant available?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have Arsenio Vieira with us this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Vieira, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Great, thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight at the meeting. Were you able to hear the comments from the planner and the discussion of council here so far?
Yes, I was. I mean, the planner explained it all. We did not ignore the situation. We did apply for a permit last year. But it was denied because after a while it was denied because the permit for a new building was not applied for. So we did not ignore it for this whole time. We did apply for a permit.
Is there any clarity that you could provide council on why you want the storage containers and what it is you're doing?
Yeah, it basically has all our forms and all our installation, everything to do with the base for the new building. So everything is stored inside those two containers for the new building. So once I have the foundation done, I want to get rid of them. I'm saying 12 months because we don't know how long it'll be until we get our permits applied for and approved. And obviously we can't start till spring or summertime. So after that's done, I don't need them anymore. I don't want a single one to stay behind or nothing, just for the time being until I can get the foundation done for the building.
Thank you for the clarification. I'm going to go around and see if council has questions for you.
Okay.
Councillor Buschetti, any questions for Mr. Vieira?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kleiber, any question for Mr. Vieira?
Mr. Vieira, why have you applied for the permit yet?
Yes, we did. Yeah, that's why I said we applied for it. I can't remember exactly what month it was, but we did apply for it. It took the 30 days or 40 days or whatever it was to get it back to us with it. And it was denied because we did not have an open permit. So that's why we're going this route.
So you applied for it, it was denied, now you're reapplying?
Are you talking about the permit for the C-cans or for the building?
No,
Sorry.
I'm talking about the permit for your building.
Oh, no, I haven't. No.
You haven't applied for a permit for the building.
No. I plan on doing it in the next month or so. It's just because the building permits expire for a year, so I want to make sure it's not too far ahead of time before I start the building.
What do you think the turnaround time is for your building? A year?
It'll take me about a year, yeah, but I don't need the cans for the entire building. I just need it for the foundation.
Mr. Planner, so the fitness center can't get their sign off because of the storage containers? Is that what I just heard?
My understanding that the occupancy permit has been issued for the fitness center, but I'll have to confirm that because as Pam mentioned, there was that issue with the letter of clearance. So I'm just looking through my records now. Hopefully I can provide some clarity on that.
There seems to be layers of issues here, and I'm not clear really where this is all going. So Mr. Vieira, you're going to build within the next year, but you have to apply for the permit.
Yeah.
And this is, what kind of construction company are you?
Well, I'm myself an electrical contractor. I'm not the one doing the
Oh, you're
work.
the.
I'm the owner. I'm the owner of the building.
Okay, and so the person that has this, the storage, they can't store it within the building because you've got quite a bit of square footage in the back there. Some of that can't be moved over? If we,
Into the building?
yeah.
No, the buildings are full. The building is full, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clyburn. Councillor Craig, any questions for the applicant? Sorry, Mr. Planner, go ahead, and then we'll go to Councillor Craig.
I just wanted to clarify that through my records, it looks like it was an interim occupancy permit that was issued for the fitness center. So it doesn't appear that a final occupancy permit has been issued at this point.
Thank you for the clarification. Councillor Craig, go ahead.
Mr. Vieira, when you intend to apply for a building permit?
Sorry, what was the question?
When do you intend to apply for a building permit to put up your building?
We're right now dealing with the engineers to get the drawings finalized for and stamped. So I'm hoping to be in the March, sometime in March.
So once you get that and you get the permit, you will the stuff in the containers will be used for the basement ASAP. Am I correct?
Yeah. Once the ground thaws out, then we will be drilling piles and start the foundation. Correct.
And how long will that be like? Give me a timeline, a rough timeline here.
Well, I'd like to be done and over with by end of July.
End of July.
Providing everything goes well, and I mean, obviously we're dealing with shortage of some materials for COVID and whatever. I don't know. I can't predict that part, but July would be my timeline. This is where I'd want to be.
Yeah, I totally understand that. There's always pros and cons. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess this is just a little confusing on the back and forth of what's gone on here. So part of what concerns me is that we've started this off as an enforcement issue. So I'm not sure if our administration can speak to how much money we've spent dealing with your containers already, Mr. Vieira. But I would say it's several $100s in staff time with Red River Planning, and then the containers aren't moved, and now you're asking them to stay. And then if you don't build this building by July or September or within the next year, and council grants you this conditional use to allow you to keep the containers for 1 year, and you don't build the building, and we have to go through enforcement again and bring it back to council to vote to remove your containers, now we're spending more money again on the taxpayers' dime, and that concerns me a little bit. So I don't know if you can provide any clarity here that these containers will be moved and that you'll get under construction, because I don't like spending money and time of our staff and council to be making decisions about enforcement. And the stage that we're at now means that we've spent some money here on our bylaw officer, determining that this is non-compliant. And I see now that you're coming to us because you need an occupancy permit, but it's a little frustrating on our end. We're spending tax dollars here trying to deal with this. So I don't know if you can provide council some assurances on this building coming up, because we've got a resolution to remove these.
No, and I totally understand. I mean, I don't know what I can provide you for assurance. I mean, the process is ongoing right now. I mean, until I have the plans and I can bring them into RRPD and apply for a permit, I don't know what I can do. And I am doing my best. I am going to go ahead with this, but I don't know what I can do to prove it to you. But I guess what I'm getting at.
Thank you. Councillor Bichetti, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I don't know if we can do this, but just it's a question, I guess, to all. Could something like this get tabled, since Mr. Vieira has also said that he's probably going to have it in by middle of March? Our next meeting is on, sorry, I don't have a calendar here in front of me, so that it does get to the application point. At that point, he would not even need this conditional use, because it would go right into storage for building material, because the application's out. So that would force him to get rid of them, and it's not us again spending taxpayers' money to deal with this issue. Just comments from anyone or Mr. Planner?
Mr. Planner, any concerns with that?
No concerns in terms of whether council's able to do it. Council can certainly table the application to any date. If a certain date isn't set, then it'll have to be re-advertised. I guess the preference would be to set a specific date that council would want to see this coming back.
Councillor Bichetti?
Whatever date our next planning meeting is at, I just don't have a calendar in front of me.
Thank you. Councillor Kleiber, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing as Councillor Bichetti, in that we could table this. I would like to see that permit going first. And, you know, and I think it's a good point. If he says sometime in March, we could give him till the end. Could we go till the end of March or beginning of April? Like the first planning meeting in April, or is that too long, Mr. Patton?
Well,
go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to say another option would be to shorten the timeline for which, if council wants to say, give approval for 3 months, just throwing that number up there. Then it wouldn't need to come back to council if it runs out and they're not able to, they haven't applied for a building permit yet, and they can't get a temporary use permit, then the enforcement can proceed. So that's just another option for council if you don't want to see it coming back. Again, do a future meeting would just be to the shortened timeline of approval.
It's up to you, Mayor. I think that a shortened timeline might work. That's just my thought. Perhaps the CAO could speak to it a little bit. I don't know if he can guide us a little bit. Nope, he doesn't want to speak to it.
Councillor Kleiber. I guess my question would be on the enforcement end, because we've spent this money. If we followed your advice, Mr. Planner, and shortened it to a 3-month, would we have to go through the whole process of enforcement and bringing that back to council and starting that whole process again? Or would our resolution hold? And if there isn't a permit for construction within the next 3 months that allows for that other permit process to allow the containers to stay during construction, would we then, would the RRPD then be able to immediately enforce our resolution and remove those containers in 3 months? I wouldn't want to see us start that process again and spend that money.
I understand your concerns. I can't speak to that resolution. I don't know what it says. I wasn't involved with it, so I don't know exactly, but typically this wouldn't affect something like that. But again, I don't know the specifics of what the resolution says, so I can't say for sure. But typically, this wouldn't affect the enforcement process. If the 3 months runs out, then typically the enforcement would proceed. I don't know if that would require a new resolution from council, just because I don't know what that resolution says.
Okay. Is there any way to make reference of that in a condition as part of approval for this? Like, is there a way to add a condition that he's got 3 months, and if construction doesn't begin with a permit, then the containers need to be removed off-site? Is there any way to enforce that through a condition in this?
Yes, absolutely. So that would give our office direction, certainly, in the event if it's not there in 3 months. So, for example, the third condition could read that this conditional use approval will expire 3 months from the date of decision, by which point both storage containers must be removed from the property, new conditional use approval obtained, or temporary use permit obtained.
Okay. Any concerns from council on that condition?
I would leave.
Right, go ahead, Councillor Boucher.
I would leave the part out about coming back to council if it's not met with. Just that will be the final. I don't want to put more money to the taxpayers on the same containers. We're giving you one more kick at the cat here. It's just the only way to put it. And otherwise, it's no containers on the property. removed immediately after the 3 months.
Seeing nods. I think that's okay. Any concerns from administration or Ms. Elias on that as a condition?
Madam Mayor? Yeah, Madam Mayor, no concerns for me. I think it's a good recommendation.
Madam Mayor?
Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that if we keep it to the 3 months and get that, I think this is a good solution. And then we can, if it's not complied with, then we move forward. I think that's good. Just for reference, that was the September 18th meeting, that CT 2770105.
Thank you for that, Councillor Kleiber. Mr. Patton, go ahead.
I just wanted to note that we can certainly remove the reference in the condition to a new conditional use, but the applicant is always entitled to apply for a new conditional use. So we couldn't actually refuse a new application. But I think the message has been sent tonight that council would not look favorably upon a new application. So the applicant should keep that in mind. But just the Planning Act says that we can't refuse applications.
All right, Ms. Elias, have we got anybody registered to speak in support, opposition, or for information on this application?
No one else registered to speak.
Thank you. And Mr. Vieira, after hearing our discussion here, you do have an opportunity to speak again. Is there anything else that you are wanting to add?
No, I just like to say, if I understand where everybody's coming from. CCANs are an eyesore and they depreciate the value of everything around there. I went over and above when I built my building to make it look nice, unlike some buildings are there that don't meet the architectural design or agreement that was put into place. So I do want to keep the area looking good, and I do want to keep up the value. I don't want to keep them on a permanent solution. I know they look tacky, but it is a necessary evil that I need in order for me to get started on my another building.
We can appreciate that. I think the challenge here is, I think it would have been easier to come to council and ask for the storage containers before this turned into an enforcement issue, because council has certainly approved storage containers on Capitalist, behind fencing, painted, matching the building, or if you knew it was going to be temporary until you built a second building. The problem is we've worked our way down an enforcement issue now where they were just about to be towed. So now we've got municipal dollars and time and invested in this, where that could have just been avoided in bringing this forward to us earlier. So
I totally understand.
I think that's where council's raising some concerns here, because we understand if storage containers have to be there and they're painted and we've got fencing, we've been dealing with that. We want to work with our commercial businesses along Capitalist, but we want you to work with us too. So,
all right, understood.
All right, I think everybody's had an opportunity to speak. I'm going to close the public hearing and then we will read the resolution. Be resolved that council do hereby close the public hearing and resume regular meeting of council. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Prague, seconded by Councillor Bichetti. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. I'm going to read through the resolution up to application to condition 2, Mr. Planner, and then I'll have you, if you don't mind, help me with what we've asked for here. Whereas the applicant has applied for conditional use 121 to permit 2 storage containers on property located at 997 Capitalist Drive in the commercial highway zone. And whereas under the provisions of the Planning Act, a public hearing has been held to hear representations for and or against the conditional use application. Now therefore be it resolved, the Real Municipality of West St. Paul approves conditional use permit CU 121 under the following conditions. 1, that conditional use approval is limited to allow 2 storage containers as proposed within this application. Any changes will require new conditional use approval. 2, applicant owner to obtain all required permits and approvals, including but not limited to those from the Red River Planning District and RM of West St. Paul. And I will turn that over to you, Mr. Planner.
Number 3, that this conditional use approval will expire 3 months from the date of decision, by which point both storage containers must be removed from the property or a temporary use permit obtained.
Thank you. The approval of a conditional use will expire and cease to have any effect if it is not acted upon within 12 months of the date of decision. A board, council, or planning commission may extend the deadline under subsection 1 for an additional period not longer than 12 months if an application is received before the initial deadline. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Question. Not moving it. Okay.
Just the last point the planner made about, can we put a condition in there that it's going to be triggered with an application, put a building permit being applied for? That's going to be the condition that we are extending the 12 months. I believe that's what we were saying. That's what's going to trigger the 12-month approval. But at that point, is he going to need this variance, I guess, because it's allowed once the application's put in for the building permit?
That's why we're just giving him 3 months. He has 3 months to apply for a building permit, which would then trigger to allow him to temporarily have that container there while he builds. Is that correct, Mr. Planner?
That's correct. So we can't issue a temporary use permit until and unless he gets a building permit for the second planned building. So I can make that clear in the condition.
Yes, please.
So your certainty.
Yeah.
So give me a moment here. I'm just going to add a phrase to the end.
Madam Mayor, could we have a break in here somewhere possibly?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I've just added a sentence to the end of that, so I'll read the condition in full. Number 3, that this conditional use approval will expire 3 months from the date of decision, by which point both storage containers must be removed from the property or a temporary use permit obtained. For greater certainty, a building permit must be obtained for the planned second building on the property before RRPD can issue a temporary use permit for the container.
Good. Thank you. Just one more question for clarification. If engineering drawings come in and they submit for a permit to then allow them to stay while they're doing construction on a second building, is there a time limit on that permit? Like, we're not going to see these sitting there indefinitely where they pull a permit and say they're going to build something, but nothing's getting built. So is there time restrictions on that permit process?
So the temporary use permit is valid for up to 12 months.
Okay. Okay. Everyone okay with the new wording of the resolution then? Okay. Any further questions, comments for discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Planner. Great job in walking us through that.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
We did not have a mover or seconder on that resolution.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm going to blame Councillor Bichetti on that.
I'll second.
You raised your hand to ask a question, you threw me. But it's my fault, I'm not doing a job. I've got a mover of Councillor Bichetti, seconder Councillor Kleiber. All those in favor, we'll do this properly. Opposed, carried, thank you. All right, thanks. Thank you, Ms. Shaw, for drawing my attention to that. All right. And then we have, before we take a break, do we have you with us on the road closure item, Mr. Planner, as well? I know it's not a public hearing, but our last item is 6.1, first reading of the road closure bylaw.
That's going to be done by your administration, unless your administration wants me to remain for any reason.
I will read the resolution and see if there are any questions. And if it's administration or for yourself, thank you for sticking around. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-3, being a bylaw of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul, to close a municipal road referred to as Cadillac Lane and authorize the sale of land be read a first time. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Prague, seconded Councillor Bichetti. Any questions? There's a background information attached with this for council as well, and an administrative report. Any questions or concerns regarding this? Hearing and seeing none, then I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Planner, for your help and recommendations and reports this evening. Thank you very much. All right, council, I've had a request for a break, and I think that's a great idea. Can we take a 15-minute break and come back for the rest of a lengthy agenda? So 8:30, we come back. All right, thank you. All right, I believe we're back live. Thank you for your patience, everyone, while we had a break. We are on item 7.1, where confirmation of the minutes. 7.1 is special meeting of January 25th. Be it resolved that the minutes of the special meeting of council held on January 25th, 2020 be approved. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Link, seconded Councillor Prague. Any questions, concerns about the minutes of January 25th? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 7.2, regular meeting of January 28th. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on January 28th, 2021 be approved. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Prague. Any concerns with the minutes of the January 28th meeting? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. All right, item number 9, bylaws for consideration. 9.1, we have first reading of a bylaw 2021-04 added to taxes. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-04, being a bylaw of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul, to add outstanding accounts and utility charges to the tax roll for the year 2020 be read a first time. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Kleiber, seconded Councillor Bichetti. Any discussion? Council had an opportunity to talk about this on the committee of the whole meeting. Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Item 9.2, first reading of bylaw 2021-5 tax cancellation. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-5, being a bylaw of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul, to authorize the cancellation of taxes owing to the municipality for the years 2019 and 2020 be read a first time. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Prague, seconded Councillor Kleiber. Any discussion, comments on this? And again, we had an opportunity to review as a council at the committee of the whole. Hearing and seeing no comments, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. 10.1, we have accounts. Be it resolved that the vouchers 41841 to 41892 as listed, totaling $257,664.37, and manual payments totaling $20,272.43 be approved as presented. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Prague, seconded Councillor Bichetti. Any questions, concerns regarding the accounts? Go ahead, Councillor Kleiber.
I noticed that there were 2 items, 41851 and 41863.
I can't hear you, sorry.
You can't hear me?
That's better.
Okay, sorry. Maybe I have my paper on the speaker. Number 41851 and 41863. I believe that there were supposed to be, those are equipment tenders, and wasn't there supposed to be different people that got that contract? Can we have that looked into?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that should have gone to the people that won that contract, correct?
Those are from 2020.
You're still on mute, Mr. CEO. Go ahead, I'll turn this over to you.
Those are from 2020. Those aren't from 2021, but I'll report back to council on it.
Okay, thank you. So would Mr. CEO, 41883, would that also be from 2020 then? Oh, I can't hear you.
Still on mute.
Both of those are from 2020. The contractor submitted them at the end of the year.
Right, the 41883 S&J construction, would that also be last year? If you could look into that one too.
41883?
Yeah.
What you said? No, that's not from last year, I don't believe.
That's from this year. Yes? You think so? Okay, well, whatever. If you can get back to me on those 3, I'd appreciate it. Sorry I didn't get those to you earlier. Appreciate it.
we'll have follow-up on that. Councillor Link, go ahead.
Comment that there's over $11,000 on visa payments, and there's absolutely no nothing about any detail at all about what those payments or what those services were for. Over $11,000. And so I'd just like to say, I'm very disappointed to see that.
I can speak to that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw.
As council will notice, we have our accounts approved as checks of the manual payments, which our visa is paid as. And then when we do our visa summations, we'll have a vendor listing for council. So visa comes to council twice for review, once for the payment and once for vendors.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Mr. CEO, go ahead.
This isn't the first time you expressed disappointment, Councillor Link, and it's been the same response to you every time. First, we post that we make a payment, so we make on time for the visa, and then following, we post the details. So you keep expressing disappointment about the same thing, and it's a little bit inaccurate.
Okay, sorry about that. But so when will we expect to see the list of vendors?
It could be in the next set of pays.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions regarding the accounts payment registry? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Item 11 is our payroll monthly statements. Be it resolved that the payroll for the month of January as follows be approved as presented. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Prague. Any discussion on payroll? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Item 13, we have a CAO report. I'll read the resolution, get a mover and seconder, and we can go through if there's any questions. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West St. Paul accept the CAO report as information. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Prague. We have the CAO January report. Excuse me. Any questions, concerns regarding the CAO January report? Seeing none, we have the Council January reports attached. Any questions, concerns regarding the Council reports? Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
I noticed that Councillor Prague attended the MAR webinar. So I'm the designated committee member on that, but can we just attend webinars if we want of other committees?
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. I believe that Councillor Prague is the second person on that committee.
Yeah, I'm the first. So he's the alternate. I was at that meeting.
Yep. So Councillor Prague is the alternate on that committee.
Right, but I was there, so there was no need for an alternate.
That was not a sorry, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
That was not a meeting. That was a webinar, learning thing. And I think we are allowed to go to, as the alternate, to go to learning and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. So if there are other learning things for other committees, we can just attend them. I'm just wondering if that's the case. And if it is, then I'm quite happy because then I can go to some other things. Is that correct, Mayor Christian? Am I allowed to do that?
I believe that Councillor Prague attended because he's the alternate on this committee. So nobody else attended but yourself and the alternate on the committee, so that Councillor Prague's informed if you're not able to make anything. In terms of any of us attending, I don't believe that we've done that.
Oh, well, but I was there, so an alternate would only take my place if I wasn't there, right?
But
isn't that how it works or no?
Councillor Prague, go ahead.
if it's a learning thing, if it's a meeting itself, then and you attend, then I don't attend. If it's a learning thing, educational, then I'm allowed to attend.
Okay, so then I could do that as well on other committees.
No, just on this.
If I'm the alternate.
Yes, if you're an alternate and it's a learning, educational seminar or web thing, then you're allowed to go there.
Okay. Good. All right, good. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Councillor Bichetti, go ahead.
I'm not sure if we can do it now, or I can do it on the next month. There's one that I attended on January 6th for recreation, which was the splash pad webinar. But I forgot to put it on my indemnity, and I can add it to the next month and see it come up next month.
Or we can add when we get to miscellaneous meeting dates. Yep,
Okay.
we can add on that. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
Yeah, I was late with my indemnity, but I'm just going to put it on the next month. Instead of trying to get into, because I was at the planning conference and all that, but I was late with my indemnity, so she just put in the basics for me. So thank you, Ashley.
When they get in, they get in. I think we can definitely have a council discussion about what we attend. It's certainly not up to any one of us or me as mayor. It's the will of council. So I definitely think we can have that kind of conversation. I know that there has been talk about indemnities and what we should attend and how we need to save money. So I think it's the will of council in terms of what we attend for webinars, for conferences, for education. And that's a discussion that I'm open to having with council. It's certainly not one member of council that makes that decision.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad you said that because that's why I wanted it clarified. So thank you.
Okay. All right. And then finally, we have the animal control January report as presented there as well. If there's no further comments or questions, I have a mover and a seconder. I will call for the question to accept as information. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. 14.1, we have miscellaneous correspondence for the month of January. I'll read the resolution and do the same thing. We can go through those. Be it resolved that the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul accept the miscellaneous correspondence for the month of January as information. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Pereg, seconded Councillor Link. So we have the miscellaneous correspondence package for the month of January. Any comments, questions, concerns regarding that? Councillor Link, go ahead.
I did notice an interesting looking workshop on Wednesday, February 24th. University of Alberta, a virtual meeting about Fit Cities, Fit Towns Canada. I don't know if anybody else noticed that. It's extremely cheap to get into. I wonder if administration could see if there's anybody interested in attending that one. It's fairly long, 8 in the morning till 1 p.m. But it certainly looks interesting. Improving public realm for health and well-being, improving social connections in our communities. And I think it's the first one of its kind.
Thank you, Councillor Link. If that's something that we can have sent out to all of council to see if anybody's interested in attending. Sure. Councillor Kleiber, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know when we're doing miscellaneous meeting correspondence, are we just listing the official letters from organizations? Like if somebody sends a resident sends an email to all of council, we don't list it there, do we? Because I know at one point one of my residents had sent a letter to council and to the RM, and they asked why it wasn't listed on the list as correspondence. So we don't list those kinds of things. Is that what we do? At our policy?
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. Ms. Shaw, do you have any comments on that in terms of what makes the list of correspondence on the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do have a policy that guides us on miscellaneous correspondence, but typically correspondence, if it's sort of an ongoing communication between a resident and council, wouldn't fit that criteria. But we definitely look at everything that comes in and determines how it reaches the agenda and if it's appropriate for agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Councillor Link, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I forgot to add a thank you to whoever puts together the correspondence and is sending out the AMM bulletins and updates. We're now getting them fresh, and we don't have to wait till the correspondence package. And therefore, we're not missing deadlines and so on that we were before. So I'm happy to see that, and I want to thank whoever's responsible for that.
Thank you, Councillor Link. All right, 14.2, we have Manitoba infrastructure update, and I want to thank staff for adding that to the agenda for residents to see. There were trees cut along Highway number 9, and residents would have received information in the form of this letter directly to their homes, notifying them about trees being removed along Highway number 9 for roadway expansion in the near future. And I'm glad that that is sent out, because sometimes those questions, and they did come to the RM, and it's not us, it's Manitoba infrastructure. They're not our trees, and that's not our issue. So for anybody reading that on the agenda. Councillor Bichetti, go ahead.
I was wondering if we could get admin to ask Highways or MI for an update so that we can update some of the residents. Like, I've been getting calls, well, when the trees were being taken out, people walking by and calling me and emailing me wondering what's going on, when's it going to be starting. We can see something's getting ready to happen. But the ratepayers that live along Main Street, like I've talked to them all the way up to the school, are just wondering what's going on, and they think that we all know what's going on. So I'd like to be informed. Like, we had a meeting once about when the bridge was being done, so I'd like to see, them come back and inform all of council on what is going on, because I'm sure we will all take, some comments on this. And so just if we can get an update on what's going on, or a meeting again like we've had in the previous term.
Yep, great point, Councillor. Absolutely. It helps us to be working with them. Councillor Link, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Similar matter, people on Addis across from Meadowlands, they would really appreciate, and you know this because I emailed you and CAO, they would really appreciate an update about how the development is going to affect them in terms of the infrastructure for wastewater and roads and so on, and the timing, because this thing is phased. They don't know what to expect, and this causes a bit of stress for the residents that are living right across from this big development that's going up. They've got questions, and they would really like. They're not against it. They just would like to know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Link. The first issue is Manitoba Highways, so we wait on them and we're informed by them on the trees on number 9. So if we can get an update from them and we can help them inform our residents. The second issue of Meadowlands and the development there, they were recently provided an update in terms of the infrastructure that's being installed for wastewater, for water lines, and for drainage. And so when there's more progress coming forward, then I'm sure the developer with information with the RM would provide further update on that. But the most recent was, I'm going to say 2 weeks ago, Mr. CAO, that went out to all of Riverdale and impacted residents in the area, letting them know that what was going on was drainage installation, wastewater lines, and water lines. So as that project keeps progressing, and depending on the timelines, depending on approvals from council, tonight we approved the first reading of the road closure for Cadillac Lane. it's hard to provide residents with an update, not knowing how that process is going to go and whether or not council is going to vote in favor of those things that then trigger the next steps of development. So as soon as certain thresholds and steps are met, then residents are informed this is what's happening, this is what's going on. So we don't want to misinform everybody. When information goes out, it has to be at that timeline that of that stage in the construction. Would you say, Mr. CEO, I'm representing that correctly?
Yes, you're very accurate.
And when the residents are informed, would the counselor for the area please also be informed with that same information? That would really help.
That went out as an email blast to the entire community.
I saw that, but that's not for Addis. That was for Riverdale, and that was great.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Item 14.3, we have the City of Selkirk letter to Red River Planning. Everybody's had a chance to look at that. City of Selkirk is interested in possibly leaving Red River Planning District and looking after their own planning. So that will have implications going forward of what that looks like. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
Was this known? Was this known that they were going to leave when we did that East Interlake group? Like, did they know already that they were leaving? And is the East Interlake group going to be the new planning district, or is that just a separate entity?
I don't know what the City of Selkirk has been doing and their timeline in terms of leaving. It talks about in the letter that they've been working, I'll pull up the letter, that they've been looking at and exploring the cost of having their own planners on hand. As you're aware, City of Selkirk raised concerns, and now they're directing administration to undertake a study regarding the feasibility of looking at oversight and delivery of land use and planning. The study conducted by an outside consulting firm, it confirms that it is feasible for the city to operate their own planning service. That's up to them, but the Interlake District, so it's not East Interlake District, the Interlake District that is the same boundaries of the AMM Interlake District is not a planning matter. It's just a collaboration of neighboring municipalities who are designated within AMM's Interlake District. Nothing to do with land use planning at all.
Okay, and I have had a number of phone calls with people that are concerned that we.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay, can you hear me now?
Barely. A little bit louder if you can.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, I'll go really close to my computer here.
Okay.
How's this?
Yep. Very good.
Do we, being that Councillor Parag and yourself are on the planning district, do we have any concerns about leaving, or are we going to stay? Because we have so much development going on that I don't really want to see us follow this, because it would be very pricey for us. I understand that some of the districts, spent $400,000 on planning before they even came to Red River Planning. So do we have any intention of doing the same, or are we sticking with Red River? I think you're deputy chair now too as well. So just want to alleviate some of the fears.
Good questions. Councillor Prague is not on Red River Planning District anymore. Councillor Bichetti is our representative with me out at Red River Planning District.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that would be a decision that would have to come through council and a discussion that we would have. And that's nothing that any member of council has raised with me or that we've talked about in any way at any of our council meetings. So that certainly, that would have to come from council as wanting to have that kind of discussion. I'm pleased with the changes that are being made out at Red River Planning. We've had some hiccups along the way with some issues that they've acknowledged. There's been some mistakes made and we're not always 100% happy, but There's some great changes coming in terms of more resources to bylaw enforcement, a cloud permitting process that will allow our residents to get their permits online instead of driving out to Red River Planning. So we work very well with them. And this hasn't been anything that I've heard any council member from our team expressing any kind of desire to have a conversation about leaving. It would certainly have to be the will of council and a discussion. And we have not had that kind of discussion.
Yeah,
So,
good to hear. I just, people see that and they get a little upset, and
yeah.
So it's good to be able to get back to them and say, no, we're staying where we are. Well, thank you for that.
Councillor Prague, go ahead.
When I had my one-on-one meeting with Jennifer Ferguson there, I advised her, because of the new program coming out, let the whole council, these councillors know about this program. They don't have a clue what's happening. That's why all these questions are popping up. Like, this new system came in, and the whole council should know about these systems, like how they're improving the system. It appears that the councillors don't know that. And I asked specifically for them to be educated on this so they can tell their constituents that they're trying to speed up the process by introducing these new technologies.
Yeah, great comments, Councillor. We just had a Red River Planning Executive Committee meeting last week, I believe. My weeks slowly slide into each other. Last week, and one of the things that I raised in them looking at strategic planning for the next couple of years and the priorities was the communication piece. And so the executive director will be providing each of the municipalities with information that we can share through email blasts, that we can put on in our newsletter and on our website, so that residents know about this cloud permitting process that's coming and some of the really positive changes. Having 5-day bylaw enforcement, which they never had, really addresses our #1 strategic plan of bylaw enforcement. So there's some really good things that they're doing, that they're understanding our issues as member municipalities and putting resources into that. So, but if you don't communicate it to council, and if it's not communicated to the community, then nobody knows. So they're definitely upping the communication, and we should be receiving that soon. The executive director is working on that. Great points, great discussion from council. 14.4, Red River Planning District, City of Selkirk letter of acknowledgement. So again, this is back to Selkirk's request, and Red River Planning acknowledged that they've received their letter, and so we'll see where that goes. Again, and just so council knows, if a member of Red River Planning decides they don't want to be part of it anymore, there has to be approvals through the province. We don't just, if we had ever decided we don't want to do that anymore, this would all have to be approved through the province. So I don't see this being a quick process, and we'll see what happens. 15.1, miscellaneous meeting dates. I'll read the resolution, and then if there's any questions or concerns, be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of West St. Paul authorize attendance at the following meetings as listed. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Buschetti, seconded by Councillor Link. Councillor Buschetti, now if you're wanting to mention the addition so that Ms. Shaw can take note.
I don't have the dates here. I'll put it on the next month and clear it up, because there's 2 that I missed there. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
I think there's a typo. January 20th, Manitoba Planning Conference. I just looked at my planning conference sheet, and it was 19th, 21st, and 22nd. There wasn't anything on the 20th.
Oh, good catch. Thank you. On that day, we had Red River Planning meeting. We had an appeal hearing. So if we can remove January 20th, Ms. Shaw. Councillor Link, go ahead. You're still on mute.
I had one more question when you have a minute.
On the 21st of January, I attended the Red River Basin Land and Water International Conference, but I don't see it on there. I did put it on my indemnity.
I believe we have a resolution for that, Councillor Link. So if we have a prior council resolution, we were all authorized to attend.
Okie dokie. And I know that Councillor Kleiber also attended the Developer Public House River Springs and Masters on the I think it was the 28th. Because I attended that second one as well, but I just put in for the one.
Councillor Kleiber had mentioned she has not yet done her indemnity, but it is forthcoming. Okay. So she has not been missed. She will receive her indemnity when she submits it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was my mistake. And they put the basics in for me, and I'm going to be capturing that.
Okay.
I had one question on, because I had a phone call on this, and I'm just wondering, I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about it now, so you can always let me know. On-site park meeting with CEO regarding gate closure. I had a call about the gate closure in, I think it was Rivercrest, and I referred it on, but whatever happened to that? Is the park closed now, or is it open for cars? And maybe, yeah, Councillor Perrak, yeah, please.
Councillor Prague, go ahead.
There was a problem, complaints about drug dealing at the park with a house on that street. So the gates were closed, the people were not allowed in. That's a public park, that's what St. Paul Park. So there was complaints, the mothers have to drag their kids to go to the toboggan slide and so. So we went there, I got safer neighborhoods involved to go there, stake the house out, see whatever can happen there, to confer with this, to see what they're still investigating. We decided, no, get new people to open the gates and close the gates during the daytime when the kids can go, because the kids were off school due to COVID. And to see their mother, the moms pulling the toboggan in the ditches and coming over was a sad sight. And all the cars parked on the street was not a good thing to look at. So we went there, there was discussions back and forth. Even the CAO had to go on a weekend, 2 weekends in a row. I had to go. Councillor Bussetti had to go. And then they got a resident there who on weekends, we don't have to pay staff. I got a resident there who will open the gates in the morning and close it in the evening. And that's one of the stuff, how I remember it came up community as a whole. A very prominent member was bitten by a dog. He was involved too in this meeting about this gate closure.
Okay, thank you, because I think the concern that I got was the weekend, and that there was a bunch of cars being parked there on their weekend, and there was some issues with the particular house you mentioned. So that's still under investigation then?
No, the CEO on his own time on the weekends went there, opened the gates himself, went back and closed the gates at night. When I informed him, I know a gentleman down the street who walks the dog, a prominent businessman, he will do it. The CEO happens to know him also, went there, give him the keys, and he can open it on the weekends and straight days. Because I had to go speak to neighbors and so around there, what was going on in there, to get the true picture of what was happening.
Okay, thanks.
So now it's open.
Okay, thank you.
It was a lot of, kudos to Councillor Parag and our CEO, and we met with residents, and I know we all fielded, Councillor Bichetti as well on that weekend, fielded a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails from people concerned about safety, from residents wanting access to the park. So I'm really pleased on how that came together, and it's open during the days, the gates open, people can park there, and the safety concerns at nighttime have been addressed, the gates are closed. We also talked about this in a recent meeting on Monday. The CEO and I met with Inspector Duff from Selkirk, and we talked about that, making sure that patrols are driving through Rivercrest and looking at our parks. And we want to see more presence from them. And so he's now fully aware. He's been aware of issues in the past in Rivercrest that were addressed, and he's aware of now our gate issue. And so he's on board as well. So some of these issues are tricky, but really great to meet with residents, social distancing, and just figure out some compromise so that we're dealing with the safety issues and that people can still use the park and park in there. We don't need moms and grandparents that were falling in the ditches, parking on the street, trying to use the park. That's no good. We were definitely getting calls on that. So we, good team, addressed the issue, and we keep moving forward there. Any other questions regarding the miscellaneous meeting dates? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. We have the appointment of the municipal weed inspector. Be it resolved that Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul appoint Terry Ferguson as municipal noxious weeds inspector. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Prague, seconded Councillor Link, and this also was an issue that came to our committee of the whole meeting previously. Any other comments, concerns? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. All right. We are down to 15.3, Selkirk Biz 2020 Business Awards. Whereas the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul is a member of the Selkirk Biz, and whereas the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul supports the events held by the Selkirk Biz, now therefore be it resolved that Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul sponsor the 2020 Selkirk Biz Annual Business Awards in the amount of $300. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Prague, seconded. Councillor Kleiber. And maybe Councillor Prague, I'm going to turn it over to you. You're our representative there, maybe to give council a little bit of background. I know you've been working with the Selkirk Biz on this issue, and it's exciting.
Dealing with us, we're going to get a business from our municipality. There's criteria where they have to meet. That does not necessarily mean they'll be selected, but there are certain criteria. If they meet those criteria, then they go up. There's a board that sits together. I'm in the board that, okay, yes, they qualify to be awarded. And like we all live in here in West St. Paul, if you know any businesses and the criteria will come up, you can select the business, you do a short synopsis of it, and it will be handed in. There's about 6-7 criteria you have to meet. And this is put recognition to our businesses in West St. Paul.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Councillor Bichetti, then Councillor Kleiber. Go ahead.
Greg, I'm wondering if you can get us a list of the businesses from West St. Paul that are actually on the Selkirk Biz, just to, you know, maybe we can even use it in an email blast about the Selkirk Biz and showing the sponsorship from the businesses that are part of it.
Go ahead, Councillor Prague, and then back to Councillor.
I think Councillor Kleiber was before me, and then I'll go after.
I was just giving you an opportunity to answer Councillor Bichetti.
Okay. Yes, and to let you know, I'm actively recruiting businesses in West St. Paul to join the Selkirk Biz because they have opportunities there. If you're a biz member, you have a small business, you can get your insurance for your workers and so at a very cheaper rate than Blue Cross. So because of all these things they can get, I'm trying to get these businesses who don't have anything for their employees to go and join them. And they get publicity in their newsletters and they can expand out into the capital region.
Thank you. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead, and then Councillor Link.
Is there a form that we could post online or something where we could nominate? Do you have a form or?
A form will come out to the municipality and they will be given to the councillors who knows businesses and they do the synopsis.
Okay.
You know, and it's presented.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Link, go ahead.
Will that form have the criteria on it?
Go ahead, Councillor Craig.
That's correct. That's correct. So you know the steps.
That's good. I see from the Selkirk Biz report letter to Mayor Christian and Council attached, it says we're asking RMs to submit nominations from your respective area and that they be contacted prior to discuss how they handled any of the above challenges. Submit nominations in writing that include business name, contact, and reason for supporting the submission. Forward to the biz office by February 15th. So the following categories will be used: resiliency, non-traditional ways, creativity, and products adapted to remain open, staff care, excellence in keeping staff safe and employed, uplifting partners, displaying support for other businesses, to lean on me attitude, and uphill battle, determination to overcome challenges and setbacks. So they've identified the criteria and then the RM. So if council members have businesses in mind and you're wanting to use this, go ahead, Councillor Prague.
Well, that letter there should be sent out to all the councillors so they know this are the criteria. And they do a synopsis on it based on those criteria.
That's great. That's great. Do they have to be a Selkirk Biz member, or it's any business that can win an award?
Any business.
Okay.
Any business in West St. Paul.
Good. That's great. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's really great. All right, 15.6, we have spring sorry, I'm jumping ahead. 15.4, we have the 2021 grant request for Sonova Center. I will read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West St. Paul waive the Sonova Center facility rental fee for the proposed events as follows. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Link, and we discussed at Committee of the Whole. Councillor Prague, go ahead.
Can I take a step back? For the $300, don't you have to put in a resolution or something from council?
Yes, yes, and I think we just, Ms. Shaw, did I get a mover and a seconder, but we didn't vote on it? Thank you.
Apologies, yeah.
Thank you. We got so wrapped up in the discussion. Thank you, Councillor Prague. So, all right, I've got the one resolution on the table to waive the grant request, and I had a mover and a seconder, so I'm going to do that. So we're voting on the grant request, waiving that now. Any discussion on the grant request?
Sorry,
Yes?
Madam Mayor, I don't have the mover and seconder for the grant request recorded.
Okay.
Bichetti and Link.
Pardon me?
Bichetti and Link.
Bichetti and Link, that's what I thought. Thank you. Councillor Bichetti moved it, Councillor Link seconded. And seeing no discussion, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Ms. Shaw, we had a mover and a seconder for the Selkirk Biz Awards. That was moved by Councillor Prague and seconded.
Councillor Kleiber.
Okay, thank you. We've had discussion. Seeing no further comments, questions, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you, Councillor Prague, for bringing that to my attention. I'm just skipping right along to the next issues. All right. 1515, 2020 Seniors Luncheon. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West St. Paul provide a $500 grant for 2 senior lunches in 2021, and further be it resolved that the rental fee for the events be waived. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Prague. Again, we discussed at Committee of the Whole, and this is the typical fee and number of events that the seniors group has. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
What happens if we can't hold these events due to COVID? Does it just get put back into our operational, or how does it work? We just put it back in?
Good question. Mr. CEO, do they still get their $500 if the event doesn't take place, or they only get it if the event
Only if the event takes place.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. All right, we're item 15.6, Spring Road Restriction Policy. Be it resolved that Council of the RM of West St. Paul approve and adopt the Spring Road Restriction Policy PW 2021-1 as presented. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Craig, seconded Councillor Link. Again, we talked about at Committee of the Whole, the admin report is attached and the policy. Any further questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. All right, we are moving in camera, item 18.1, number of items for in camera. Be it resolved that in accordance with section 152.3 of the Municipal Act, Council do now move in camera to discuss matters that are in preliminary stages and respecting which discussion in public could prejudice a municipality's ability to carry out its activities or negotiations and legal matters. And be it further resolved that in accordance with section 83(1)D of the Municipal Act, any issues that are discussed are kept confidential and until discussed at a regular meeting of council. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Pereg. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. All right, we will just wait a few minutes for Brian to tell us we are all clear in camera. We need the Jeopardy song.
Yeah.
All right, we are out of camera. Thank you for anyone patiently waiting for us to come back out of camera for our rise and report this evening. I will read the resolution for 18.3.1 Dashmish School Preliminary MOU. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West St. Paul approve the memorandum of understanding between the municipality and Classic Property Management, Inc. And further be it resolved that Mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the memorandum of agreement. I apologize, it's called memorandum of agreement. And further be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of West St. Paul approve Manitoba Water Services Board to act as project manager for the related main project. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded by Councillor Prague. Mr. CEO, sorry, I just want to ask a follow-up question. Approve the memorandum of understanding. It doesn't say anywhere in the resolution to authorize yourself and myself to sign that. And maybe Ms. Shaw, is that something that we needed to add to the resolution?
As the mayor and CEO be authorized.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, oh, it's getting late. Thank you. Yep, thank you, got it. Have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to the CEO or Ms. Shaw to read the resolutions for the next two.
Eileen, what are you most comfortable doing here?
I can read, it's fine.
Okay.
Item 18.3.2, Council Members Code of Conduct. Whereas a complaint was filed under Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10, and whereas the review of the Code of Conduct complaint against Councillor Kleiber was recommended by the intake reviewer to be dismissed, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul accept the third-party reviewer's recommendation to dismiss the complaint and close the file.
Recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote. Thank you, Ms. Shaw. I will ask for a mover. Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded. Councillor Prague, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is defeated. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you. A second resolution will be required. It reads, whereas a complaint was filed under Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10, and whereas the review of the Code of Conduct complaint against Councillor Kleiber was recommended by the intake reviewer to be dismissed, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul declined the third-party reviewer's recommendation to dismiss the complaint, and further be it resolved that the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul permit the complaint to proceed to the next phase of the formal complaint resolution process. And whereas mediation on the matter has not been agreed to, now therefore be it resolved that the complaint against Councillor Kleiber must be investigated by a designated provincially approved third party as selected by the Chief Administrative Officer in accordance with legislation.
Recorded vote, please.
Request for recorded vote. Thank you. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded. Councillor Prague. Any questions? I will call for the question. All those in opposed? And that is carried. Right, Ms. Shaw, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Agenda item 18.3.3, Council Members Code of Conduct. Whereas a complaint was filed under Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10, and whereas the review of the Code of Conduct complaint against Mayor Christian was recommended by the intake reviewer to be dismissed, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul accept the third-party reviewer's recommendation to dismiss the complaint and close the file.
Recorded vote.
Request for recorded vote. Thank you. I'll get a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Prague, seconded Councillor Bichetti. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried.
resolution is not necessary.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we have the resolution to adjourn the meeting for this evening. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Prague. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried, and our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Council, and thank you for all those who attended and watched this evening. Have a good night.